Got all of it. This is how introductions work. You got to do it slow and steady. There it is. Maximum professionalism. How's it going?
Absolutely.
Dude, Nick, it's been a while since we did one of these. I don't know. When was the last one? Like a year ago, even?
Uh, almost, almost two.
Jesus. The hell's
Because I,
wrong with you? Why are you still here?
I think the last time we talked was right after your book came out.
Oh, yeah. Which, by the way, is I'm getting close. I'm like at the 5-6,000 book mark here. I want to hit 10.
Hmm.
Apparently, only 3% of books ever sell 10,000 copies.
Hmm.
So if I get
Nice.
that, I can call myself officially a good writer, and then everybody laughing at my grammar, I can be just like, yeah, whatever. I almost sold as good as Hillary Clinton. You got nothing. All right. So I watched a little bit of prep beforehand too. I caught you and Rob slapping your dicks around, pissing in the snow, spelling your names here. And I was thought you guys were doing great on the let's drunk and banter around. I was gonna hit something a little more somber. Had Chesty on last week. I think I told you about this. Do you ever hear his comment where he says the manosphere on social media is like the DMV?
I watched that entire show with Chesty last week. So
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Look at that. Everybody, he is a kind of a popular fellow, isn't he? James Spader. Ever since Stargate, man. Nothing but up and up.
Well, I was listening to that because I knew we were going to talk this week, and I need to recalibrate my brain to not, just be full of shit.
Ah, whatever. I like it though. It's a sincere conversation with people. It's like you guys have nothing to gain. It's not like you have the Nick August coffee mug merch, and if these guys listen, you get them 7 tips and tricks to. I can't even. I'm so bad at the satire now because everybody's blocked me because I've been talking so much shit. I can't even remember what's the newest meme. Is it still semen retention or have we moved on?
I don't even know because I basically I throw a few shit posts on Twitter and then get back off and do something real. So
There you go.
it's nice though because on let them the whole point of let them burn when we got together and we said we're going to do it. We're like, well, there's already plenty of people out there offering advice that dudes need, and it's all there's plenty of solid advice out there. Why are we even doing this? And Rob's I think Rob's point was like, there's nowhere people can go just to sort of fuck around and be full. Can I cuss in here?
Oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah, to just to cut up and be stupid and to make fun of shit. So we just decided to do that.
I've said the same thing. Cause I was thinking, cause yeah, like for the sleeping with chicks thing, the single guy red pill stuff, that's easy enough. I mean, there's a lot of work involved, but the process is fairly straightforward. Mystery sorted out like 90% of it in the late 90s. And then the married side, I've noticed that it's kind of gotten the same way too, because book two's research. I've been basically going through like 7 years of everything in there. And the last year is really, a lot of it is like, hey, we can save her, how to deal with anxious avoidant disorder wives. And the answer there is not just, it's not your problem. So I'm like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I
But
mean,
yeah, but
it's
you gotta, at the end, you gotta be entertained. And it's only so much woke shit you can handle on TV, right?
well, I mean, we wanted to do something that entertained us, and the thing that entertained Rob and I the most when we first started was just because we had a lot of conversations offline and behind the scenes and stuff, and we just kind of enjoyed catching up with each other, so we just decided to make it a public conversation, and then we added Bull Rush in later because I think we were drunk
Oh, probably.
and
Off a Bud Light, though, I mean, come
just
on.
decided that was a good idea. So, well, he
How does he
drinks
get
Bud
drunk
Light.
off a
I'm
Bud Light?
say what?
How does he get drunk off a Bud Light?
I don't know. I have
Isn't
no
that
idea.
beer like specifically like American capitalism designed to be you can drink this thing all day, every day. You'll never get sick of it. You'll never get too drunk to drink anymore. The pee
It's
breaks will come limited amounts, so you store it all in the shit locker.
it's
Thank you, by the way, Gregory. Big fan of Nick's. It's good to hear. Thanks for the $20 super chat. Yeah, Bud Light. The can is the only cool thing about it. That little bottle can.
it's lightly hop flavored water. I think is what it is.
Actually, there is
But
one thing I like about Bud Light. It's there was this like those little flavor things are like this big. that
Yeah,
you put with
yeah.
like water and you can drink whatever. They have this one that was for beer and it was like root beer flavored. And so you take Bud
Ooh,
Light because it's got no flavor. You just squirt a bit in there and then wow, you're drinking old school sarsaparilla. And I'm like, hey, all right,
wow, that's
yeah,
interesting.
I know. And Canadians came up with this. What the hell is that? The pineapple pizza people.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm a Canadian in my heart, but not in my mind.
Oh,
I'm
you
not
hate
sure.
freedom too?
Huh?
You hate freedom too?
Well, I hate everything just a little bit, Ryan. You taught me that.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I hate it a lot. I've told this story like 3 times, but I'm telling it again because I just love it. I was going down to the gym because they're finally like, no more restrictions. Just keep your mask on when you come in and when you leave, but when you're working out, fine. Some guy in there starts bitching at my wife about her not wearing a mask, and she tells him it's fine. And then he starts bitching at a bunch of other people. I got my headset in and I'm blasting KMFDM, so I don't give a fuck. And then he calls in security to start raising the stink, and I turned around as he's bitching, and I led into him like he was a brand new ordinary seaman. I have like never been that angry than when
Wow.
the guy got my first post-COVID gym routine interrupted with his blather. Oh, felt so good. I feel alive again, and it's everybody's over it. In the elevator, so easy to break the ice. You just talk with somebody, and what's the first thing you talk about? Hey, isn't it great to be over this shit? And then all of a sudden, you got like a new best friend.
Yeah,
I feel like Canada's coming back. We're aiming for Florida and Texas level like over this shit.
there are some good unintended consequences, I reckon.
Oh, like mask people are panicky. Hey, actually, you're a smart guy. You've dealt with like the creme de la creme of people. Is there something about medical school that you have to be a hypochondriac to want to be in?
That's a good question.
Every doctor I've seen has been like the most risk averse, wear masks, the doctor says this, the doctor says that type person, next to school teachers. But I'm pretty sure that's just because their union's fighting for them to continue working from home because they can't stand your teenage kids.
I, th- I think it's a lot like almost everything, especially when you've got such a regimented program like that. Most people go into it and they just check into the program and they parrot whatever the program tells them. So, it's like, how many people do you find that you just run into in regular in your course of daily, routines who, are hardcore freedom lovers, and not the ones that wear t-shirts and shout about it, the ones that actually just
Just want to
do
be
what
left
the fuck
alone.
they want and want to be left alone and leave other people alone. There's it's hard to find.
Not gonna lie, the biggest demographic of that 21 to 23-year-old chicks hate being told what to do. The true libertarians until they want to get married. Then the states, it's it's a necessary evil.
They hate
Maybe
being told
that's
what to
why.
do, but they all have a can of White Claw in their hand.
Yeah, maybe
The
that's
same
why
can,
you
same
like dating the
flavor.
younger girls because like they're more libertarian. The older ones start getting all socialist. Where is this going? You need to share your whatever with me.
Well,
No, I do not, sir.
when you don't have as many options, then socialism makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. And like I said, we got the socialized healthcare and stuff, so I can make the argument for it, but at this point, I'm like, nah, you guys have walked it way back too far. I think we need a little bit of fuck you, you're on your own, Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand? How do you pronounce it? Ayn Rand?
Ayn
Ayn Rand?
Rand, Ayn Rand. I'm not sure.
I'm not good at it. I was the guy like I only heard about her back when I was in my Noam Chomsky phase, so naturally probably not going to read it. Oh, I'm going to send you something in private chat here. So that was the segue I was trying to get to there, where you talk about like get on with the program and that.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to think that this space really did shit the bed because that's like everybody's on the program. Like you see it on Twitter. You notice how it's always like a race to see who can say the most stupid, engaging shit in the morning. And then
Hmm.
by like 6:15, somebody comes out with a banger like, "Hey, your asshole's on fire," like whatever,
Yeah.
or some drama like, "Hey, you've been put your wife on OnlyFans," or and then the rest of the day is just every content creator trying to come up, and I'm guilty too, of like the most funny quote tweet to it to get their own engagement. And then you just repeat
Yeah.
it the next day. So that's like getting on with the program.
Yeah.
It's pronounced overrated.
Well,
Look at this
agreed.
guy. Look at this dude.
Well, I read as a younger guy. I read Atlas Shrugged, and I read some of her other stuff too. And but I read Atlas Shrugged, and it was the first thing that struck me was, that book could have been about 250 pages, and it'd have been it'd have been better.
Really? Well, how long is it? Is it a big beast
Oh
or?
yeah, it's Atlas Shrugged is it goes on and on and on and on.
Oh, another Moby Dick. Son of a
It's
bitch.
I'm not a big fan of Moby Dick either. I know Moby Dick right now is you know since Roman McClay shit the bed, Moby Dick has returned to the manosphere as being the king novel, but I just think it's mostly a wretched
Oh,
piece of crap.
see, that's funny. Moby Dick. I always knew like the story and the parable of it, and don't let your vengeance kill you too. I got that, but I never really read it. And then you started talking shit about it, and then finally I'm like, all right, I've got to pull this up on Project Gutenberg. It's like chapter 147. What the hell is this bullshit? And the chapters are short, but I'm like, dude, I'd rather like at least the. I was gonna make a Bible joke, but I'm like, I don't know. A lot of Christian guys need to fuck their wives too, so I probably shouldn't shit on it. I don't
Well,
want to be that kind of redditor, you know.
well, the thing about Moby Dick is it's a great story, but it's a shitty novel. And
Huh.
it's just another case of where there's a great story to tell there, but then the way it's told makes you regret ever reading the damn thing to begin with. And I don't think most dudes are honest about it. Most dudes are out there praising it, and I guarantee you they either read the Cliff's Notes or listened to the abridged audio book version that was probably 2 hours long, and that was it.
Son of a bitch. Yeah, the whole thing. And yeah, and the whole like I didn't watch or I didn't read it, but I kind of read it. I think Rolo, no offense to him, but he's like the worst victim of that ever because he's got a book. I don't know if you guys know this. It's called Rational Mail. He's got a blog, and Rational Mail is basically the first year of Rolo. You can go read all that stuff, but you would not believe how many guys come into comments and tweets and whatever. It's like, hey, I watched like 3 episodes of Rule Zero. Remember the one where you bitched about clients being cheap? So I'm pretty red pilled, and I'm just like, and that's one of the best. Actually, you know what? My first day shitting on the Fresh and Fit format
Mm-hmm.
was the day one of the Fresh and Fit guys came into my Patreon, and he started bringing up. I always call it the Batman origin story. For some reason, any guy loves to just like tell you the story about how Bruce Wayne's parents were killed and his whole life story up until that point, just so you understand
Right.
that if you were in my position, you do exactly what I did. But at no point, but all you're telling me is that like I have no idea which details of my life are important or not important to solve this thing. It's standard, whatever. But he started throwing out jargon, and I was just like, holy shit! It's like when you first learn how to cuss in the language. That's the only thing you say. I want to be the alpha oak patriarch. It was literally like a shopping list, like the word maps. He was just
Yeah.
like reading from top to bottom, like fuck it. And I was so mad. I'm like, and I remember first commenting on it, guys like, but he actually does good work. I'm like, no, there's no way he does. If this is the outcome, there's no fucking way. And then you came, and I was like, this is awesome. He's an older guy. He's been there. He's done that. He's not here for clout, so he doesn't care about that shit. And he's smart. And he learns what the fuck he's talking about. And he helped salvage my book at the end. Thank fuck. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't
Next
know how else to
time,
fluff you. I
the
really
next
don't. Or a
the next
segue.
book, I'm unfluffable at this point. The next book is going to be awesome right from the get go. Though we're going to whip that thing into shape right from the beginning.
Well, that's easy enough. That's the problem, dude.
Whenever that comes.
Nobody tells you the second book sucks. The first book was easy because I didn't know what I'm doing, so I just write. The second book, I know what I'm doing, and so I don't write now. I mean, I write, but it's never good enough. I'm on like third draft right now, and I've literally wrote it, and then out of every paragraph, condensed it to a sentence, and then wrote it again, and then did it again, and then I looked at it, and then I'm like, the structure makes no sense, so I moved everything around, and now I'm at the point where I'm staring at 300 sentences that I got to expand into a book, and I hate it already. I usually don't hate it until the editing process.
But see, that's where the editing process really ought to begin, because that's what a lot of the best writers out there, Hemingway, all those other guys, they didn't sit at home and write 500 drafts and then send something in. They wrote one shitty draft and then sent it to their editor, and then their editor told them, "Okay, here's what you got to do next." And then they did all that and dealt with those structure and all those other issues, and then sent it back. And then that was kind of it. So they got, their editor wasn't just the guy that cleaned up spelling and bullshit. It was, somebody to bounce those ideas back off of early in the process so that they didn't get into that interminable, like getting caught in a class 4 rapid while you're whitewater rafting and you just spin there forever.
Well, is that the thing? Like, are there even editors anymore? At least for like publishing house stuff. I'm not talking about Amazon or like
Yeah.
East India Fiverr, where apparently I got my guy. Oh, trust me, it's very. I don't even know how to do the accent, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, do they exist? And if they do exist, obviously they're not going to pick up shit like mine. Or like, you guys swear and cuss too much. I can't handle this. Need more woke. Penguin
Yeah.
House is right across the street, by the way. They won't even take my calls.
You should get like some kind of placard and march back and forth in front of their front main entrance.
Oh, yeah, exactly. A protest in Canada. How could that go wrong?
Have have a bike horn with you can honk.
Yeah, right. I've seen enough of those. No. I'm not even talking the trucker one. That's when I realized I hate it. I hate so many things I hate. Did I tell you the story about the protests? I probably didn't. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
well, it's like one day we were just going out to get groceries. We leave our house and then like, oh, there's a protest here. What's this protest for? This mask mandate is bullshit. This was like last summer. I'm like, awesome. And then I look, how big is the protest? It went for like 3 miles in a 6-lane boulevard, just packed. And I'm like, this is awesome. CBC is half a block that way. They're going down all the way this way to Parliament. It's huge. There's like party trucks and everything. It was basically like a trucker convoy before the trucker convoy.
Yeah.
Not a peep. Not a peep in the news. I'm like, you guys saw it. We walked by your fucking house. Next weekend, they had one of them free Palestine anti-Israel protests. There was like 20 guys. You know, the standard thing where you have the flags that still have the fold marks on it from the bag.
Right.
15 news trucks standing there watching everything. They're giving speeches and that. I'm just like, fuck you guys.
And close up on the 20 guys, so it looks like, they're just packed in.
Oh, absolutely. I was so pissed. And then when I saw the Ottawa thing, that's why it kind of hit a nerve with me. I know I don't like talking politics. I don't care about Ukraine, but I mean, that was right next door. I don't know. I broke character. I was like a real person. And I don't know, what do you guys have down there that's even equivalent? Well, I guess you guys got a trucker cop. Have you been following that at all or no? Probably not.
I honestly, I only follow shit for the jokes these days. A lot of people talk about not caring, but most people really don't not care at my level of not caring, because
Yeah.
I just totally don't give a shit.
Well, you've heard Chesty's quote, right? Behind every cynic is a disenfranchised idealist.
Yeah.
He really needs to finish his goddamn book, by the way. He's got some clever bangers.
Yeah, Chess is I never miss any of Chess appearances on your show or anywhere else if he ever does. Rob's show.
Yeah. Well, I feel bad too, because he's like, I don't know what his hourly rate is, something like $250, $350, something insane like that. And so when I get him for like, he'll sit in a chat here and ban MGTOW for $20.69, and I'm going, this is the most expensive pro bono moderator that exists right now on the internet. And I'm just like, yeah, get rid of the dick jokes, dude. You're like, got it. Bring him on the show. Now I get a speaking part. I know he's probably charging twice as much as some client who's like trying to save his life. And I'm like, hey, I want to talk about dicks. Can we borrow you for a bit? He's like, yeah, I'll be right there.
Damn, I'm jealous. My my tech consulting fee was only $150 an hour, so I'm even sucking wind when I compare it to Chesty. So
Oh, I know, dude.
I should have been a lawyer.
Well, no, you should have been an online lawyer. I'm still amazed by this. One of the guys said he was trying to get into therapy, and I thought about it, and I remember Rollo rants about it often. Remember Dr. Sean Smith? Did you ever watch his stuff?
A little bit.
All right, so yeah, he's actual shrink.
I actually read his book too. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Makes like 120 an hour for sessions. At least that's what the rate up here is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you get like MLD John. He's in his bathrobe. He hired some guy who like has like an alternative psychotherapy thing there. Makes like $1,000 scalable per client as opposed to an hour.
Right.
And I'm just going like, I don't know. I don't know if the lawyers and the doctors and the psychologists are actually smart, because like an asshole on the internet in a Captain America outfit is just crushing it in your field with zero qualifications.
Right.
I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know how maybe it is better. Maybe it's worse. I don't know. I'm assuming better, because I would hate to have the guy on the team who's like, yeah, he's destroying the West.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, though, think back to, I mean, I hate to always use the 80-20 rule, but do most people going to a psychotherapist really need to be going to a psychotherapist? And I knew somebody who was I've actually known a few people who were uh, clinical psychs, dated a few. They were some of the craziest chicks I ever dated. But
Mm-hmm.
one of them said, most people, they'd get just the same results if they, went down to the mall and spent $150 and had coffee with their friend for an hour. It's like a lot of
Hire a
people
friend.
just need somebody to talk to that they can talk to and know nobody else is going to hear about it. And I think if you look at it that way, then most people don't need a therapist. They just need a friend.
A friend, a priest. I guess
And
priests used to be good at that, but now they're giving out shit.
yeah.
Yeah, no. She's a single mom, but she's godly. You'll do it. I still can't believe guys are like their vetting process goes to the same denomination as me. I'm like, I don't know, dude. It's kind of. She
Yeah.
drinks Pepsi. I drink Pepsi. It's perfect. Pepsi Zero. We'll make it work. It's like branding.
Nobody thinks long term anymore. Nobody has the energy or the willpower to just wait and see how things shake out.
You know what? I think it's a little more nefarious than that. I got a theory. Tell me if I'm on board or if I'm all Alex Jones here, but it's that nothing in life is long term anymore. So it's not that people don't. It's that we've kind of gotten so used to not that something that would require it seems foreign. I mean, you can look at quarterly reports. You can look at like how inflation is getting bad. So you're kind of basically incentivized to spend because if you save money, you're basically just paying a tax on it. So you have to buy something right away. Capital is great. Whatever's great. Relationships, divorce is so cheap and easy now that like you have enough examples of your life. I know how many people are at my age or your age have basically seen families just decimated. At least half. Like how many
And it's not a big
friends you
deal.
had? At least 10, right? Probably.
Have what now?
Like for childhood friends, guys that you grew up with, high school, whatever. Out of all of them, how many of them had intact families when you left to go, be awesome abroad?
Probably well more than half had either came from divorced families or that was happening about that time. So yeah.
I'm at 90% myself, so I totally feel you.
Well, I think that. Well, if I cared enough, I'd sit down and think about it and count them, but I'm not going to.
But yeah, I was expecting dirty napkin math, like half, most, all.
Oh, it's well more than half, and I think you make a good point because one of the things I routinely shit post on Twitter is that economics drives history, ideology is just a song playing on the radio, and so I think economics is a greater shaper of our lives and our choices than anything else. And even if you're religious, even if you're all this other stuff, what the way you really make decisions is more economical than anything else. And so I think your point is kind of, I mean, I can see that because if marriages and relationships are disposable anyway, why waste 5 years getting to know somebody and being more confident in your knowing of them if you're going to be divorced 5 years after that? You spent a lot of time in something where you could have just gone ahead and got married, got the divorce over with, and moved on to your next one. So I mean, I think there's a lot of truth in that.
Well, and the thing that gets me too, it's what I love about where I've focused on the idea of red pill being mental models, like those narratives you tell in your head to anchor your decisions. Because I was thinking, how many guys now, power dads, I think, was it you calling them power dads, or was it you or Chesty coined the term?
I thought it was Barry Nishizawa.
Okay, either way, fucking perfect. That a lot of these guys, they come out of this going, I am going to make sure I'm a way better dad than my dad ever was. Because fuck that guy. He never bought me that pony when I was a kid. I'm like, isn't that what little girls used to do when they joined strippers? But I'm like, whatever. Men raised as defective women. Am I right, fellas? So they go into this and they're like, I want to find a girl that fits that compartmentalized archetype of my life of the stay-at-home wife that's better than my mom was, or the kids that are the perfect kids that'll appreciate me for all these sacrifices to give them the household that I never had. And I just realized it's like this weird narcissism, Like your life is this Avengers Endgame where everybody's happy, or Donna Reed, or what's the Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah.
What are some of the other ones of those? You know those Nick at Night shows. What was the other
I
one?
think you
Ozzy and
just named
Harriet.
them all. Yeah, Ozzy and Harriet, definitely.
And then they're pissed off when their wife's not on board with that because oddly enough, they're their own people and they want their own things and they do their own things and they're incentivized by their own things. The kids, all they know is when they turn 13, that whatever you want, Dad, you're a prick, so I'm going to do the opposite. To hell with like 5 years from now. I'm 13. 10% of my life has been spent hating you now.
And it's funny because when I got into this space years ago, mainly because you know, I had already sorted out most of my shit.
Mm-hmm.
But in my work, most of the dudes who worked for me were, code monkeys in their 20s and maybe early 30s. And so they were all going through shit.
Right.
And I raised two sons, and so I've got, I've kind of got that. I've got a soft spot for dudes who are, struggling and trying to figure shit out when they're younger, and because I
fucking softy.
yeah, that's me. So that gruff outer exterior is just protecting my my soft, compassionate heart. But so they're struggling mostly with marriages that they got into too young, or relationships with women and stuff. And so I would and so I dipped into the space initially for myself, but then realized that there was a lot of good stuff here that I could turn around and help them with, and refer them to the people that I respected, who were putting out content that I thought helped dudes and stuff. And what I finally started seeing, though, is I started seeing there was a difference, but in my work as a tech leader, I always I always try to classify people in our company into two different categories. They were the prospectors or miners, and there are people that the prospector personality type was somebody who likes to go out, start new projects, forge new highways, paths, empires, whatever. And then there are the miners who are who are more comfortable and better and just more suited to following along behind those guys and doing the daily work of going down in the mine, bringing out the gold, going back the next day. And then the prospectors move on to discover something else. And so that's what I used to sort of triage people and categorize them, and treat them like ants. And so and I started doing that in this space too. And I noticed that there were two kinds of dudes who were offering help. One of them, the stories are always all about them. It's always, I was, I inadvertently married a hooker and now I'm going to take it out on everybody. Or
hey, leave Anthony Johnson out of this.
I'm not naming any. I don't know any names. I'm talking about personalities here. So stories, okay. And so it's always about that guy, and then everything else is kind of irrelevant. Or it's hey, I'm great, listen to me, and then all of a sudden it's oh, I'm an alcoholic, but now I'm not. So now listen to me. And so it's always stuff about these guys going through these traumatic or big events in their lives. And there are other dudes who are simply saying, hey, this is what's always worked for me, it can work for you. Obviously it's not hard to figure out which camp I would throw in with, if I were to throw in with any camp at all. And that's to me, that's the best way to, as quickly as possible, vet your Swami. Is it all about all of their continual life discoveries, and how they have all these new revelations, and they pivot and rebrand and all that other bullshit? Or who's been giving you the same message all along, and is it quality advice or not? And it's not difficult if you can get past your own fascination with what's going on, but a lot of people can't.
Oh, of course, because it's like you're dating that chick with the big tits, fast ass, as the coke addiction, but you want the girl next door. She's nice, she's good, she's stable. Which girl are you gonna sleep with? And I'll say you right now, everybody sleeps with the tracks, the one with the track marks. I know we have to learn it the hard way. By the way, Chesty had a good point with this here. How come every time it is you bring up some like generic archetype of a piece of shit, I can think of like 4 content creators that I think you're talking about? And you know the worst part is that you don't even know them. You're just like, what's the stupidest thing I can come up with? I'm like,
Oh,
oh, you mean this guy? You're like, oh, okay.
they all bleed into me, and I'll be honest. I do have a little bit of a there is one guy that I particularly dislike, but that's because he got butthurt at a comment I made one time a couple years ago and challenged me to some kind of rhetorical duel, and then he didn't show up for it. So
Oh.
I have an extra dose of contempt for him just because he made
Well,
a
I
big
got you
deal.
here now, so let's get it on.
He made a big deal out of throwing down, and then he just blew it off. So
That's the thing too. How many boxing matches have been? Even Chesty has like a defunct boxing match under his belt. I think Myron tried to challenge him. But I was the same thing. I haven't been boxing for 6 months. Let's do this. And I used to take Brazilian jiu-jitsu and MMA training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, after 6 months, I wouldn't be running my mouth like that to anybody because I'm like, all right, I know the moves, I know the movement. And then they put a guy who knows what he's doing, like Adam Zuzek or something like that. And they're like, all right, let me show you this thing. And you're like, oh, wow, my knee. Yeah, I didn't need it anymore. And meanwhile, he's talking to other people. He's like showing them as a learning experience how he's whooping my ass. I'm like, all right.
Jack. No, Jack, I didn't have a beef with anybody named Myron. I'm not sure who that is.
Oh, that's Fresh. Or that's Fit. They're such easy whipping boys, man.
The Miami guys?
I don't know. Here, I'll put it this way. We had him on Rule Zero once or twice. And then we kind of had a talk. We're like, yeah, it's not really working. We always have like the higher, slow, fire fast attitude.
Yeah.
And it was me and Carl. This is how far back it was. And he was running his mouth about how the dating world has changed and this is how shit works now. And you guys got to listen. He was talking really fast and excited and lots of hand movements. It keeps all the people interested, like jangling keys in front of your kids. And Carl was like, he just came off of his like 52 dates in 60-day challenge.
Yeah.
And he just looked, he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm like, I've been out of the game for a while, but even me, I'm like, I don't know, man. Usually when I hear some new shit, it kind of resonates with stuff that used to work. And yeah, that was it. Ever since then, I don't know. And I get it. It's like Gresham's law. Here's economics. You guys want to? Here's Clary. Fuck Clary. I'll tell you what's up. Gresham's law is that law where like old money runs out the good. Like if you have 2 coins, one's made of gold, one's made of tin. Eventually, people are going to take all the gold out of the economy and leave the tin in. And I think people who know what they're doing when it comes to fucking has like a big Gresham's law problem, you know? And I blame those 30% of incel dudes. You know that chart? Everybody loves to post it. 30% of men haven't been laid in like the last year and a half or something.
No. Is that a bell curve or something?
Yeah, well, it was just like they're Gen X and Millennials and Gen Z. And they were showing the rate of sexlessness until like 1990 or something like that was like a 14%, which is huge. And it was like 12 for girls, 14 for guys. And then all of a sudden the 2000s hit and it just skyrockets for guys. It's like at 34%. Girls are up to like 13% though. So it's like, oh, so like the hoflation has really worked its magic. But that's the thing. It used to be that was the chart you'd throw out to show like I got street cred. I understand the problem. And now it's like marketing demographic research.
Hoflation.
There's so much of this shit. And I blame Chesty, who's in the chat. Fuck you, Chesty. Does he do this to you too? He has like a smart TV. It's got YouTube and it just recommends stuff to him and he'll watch like a Fresh and Fit. And then all of a sudden it starts recommending what's this one guy, Kippy the Frog or something like that. And he's just, and I know it's Hippocratic of me to bitch about this, but he's like, he watches TikToks and then he bitches how women ain't shit and they're going to die alone and lonely. But he has like a Pepe frog in the corner. And there's a vampire one too, because, you know, I can't show my face. All I'm doing is yelling at chicks right now. The MGTOW dictionary one. And so he keeps telling me about all these guys. And then naturally, because I'm an asshole, I like look at one of their things. By the time I'm done with it, I take a screenshot and dunk on it on Twitter. And then 5 guys are standing for him in the comments. Actually, he does a lot of good work when he's yelling at chicks. And I'm just like, I don't have a follow-up to this at all. Cut me off before I roll this.
You know, the Sperganomics is a real thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
oh, good choice of words.
I'm old enough and probably senile enough that there's a lot of, I get the technology of the web because that was my career.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get the social part of it because there's just so much. People spend so much time on the internet talking about how real life sucks, and I don't. If they had any kind of self
Oh,
respect, reflection, awareness, or something, they would see, what a ridiculous thing that is. Because to sit online and bitch about how real life sucks, if you get offline most of the time, real life doesn't have to suck.
yeah.
You may just have to do some shit, and I think that's everybody wants the code, everybody wants the formula. If I just read one more book, if I just get one more tip, everything's going to finally work out for me. And the fact of the matter is that all the knowledge you'll ever need, you probably either already have or can get in a few weeks of reading a couple things and watching some videos, and then it's up to you to go out and do that shit. And I think
Yeah.
the only advantage we had as Gen X is not that we were smarter or not that we were better. It was just that nobody cared about what we had to say. Nobody wanted our excuses, and we had to either produce results or not get anything. And there was no place to go to bitch about it.
Well, that's the thing. The bitching part I get, because I remember, this is like a Navy story. Hope you don't mind. Back in the old days when I was still brand new, fresh-eyed, and bushy-tailed, blah blah blah. There was like a bunch of tables in your main mess. The mess is like the eating area and that. And in the back was the stoker table. You always recognize it because they had beer pyramids set up. They were just drunk all the time because of their watch rotations. Whatever. The closest table to the door was for like the weapons techs and the hull, like all the guys that basically had to keep the thing together. And every morning I'd get up for work, or every evening I'd get up for work, and they'd be sitting at that table, five of them, 5 cups of coffee. The captain's an asshole, their supervisor's an asshole, the head of department's an asshole, their HOD is an asshole. They're gonna get us killed. They want this part machined out of aluminum when it's like it's for the gun, so it'll just snap. And they bitched and they bitched and they bitched and they bitched. And then when their coffee was done, they put it in the thing. They went up to work and they went and did their job. And then they came down and that's all they did. So like the catharsis I get. The part I don't like about the internet on it though is that it's like a 24/7 thing.
Yeah.
You can get up at 3 a.m. after you had a nightmare. Get up, it's like, oh, let's bitch about this shit.
Yeah.
Hey, Bitcoin, motherfuckers. And you're just like, oh. Having said that, they did stop bitching about Bitcoin. This is how I don't ever check the prices on it.
Yeah.
I just look at Twitter, and if I see a bunch of guys telling you to buy Bitcoin and you can be a millionaire, I'm like, oh, price is up.
Yeah,
and if the price is down, it just dies.
right.
I haven't heard shit about Bitcoin in a week. I go and check. I'm like, oh yeah, it's down a bit. It's down to like down 30%, I think, for me. I put 10 grand in Bitcoin. It's at 7 grand now.
Well, I've
My
basically
Ethereum I bought it at 10 and it's at 15 or 17 now. So I'm still ahead, but
yeah.
my normal boomer stocks were doing way better.
Well, I'm in the crypto charts every day because I've basically been making my house payments and shit off of my crypto investing for the last
Really?
year and a half. Yeah, ever since yield farming and higher interest opportunities popped up last year, I got heavily into that. But it's a crazy roller coaster ride. So I don't recommend anybody do it. I do it because I have the time to do it, and I can watch stuff, and I spend a lot of time selling out, moving stuff around a lot, and living off high interest yields and a lot of degenerative crypto plays that, again, I wouldn't recommend to anybody, but I do it because it's fun and it works.
Like my brother.
It's a roller coaster ride, so it's not.
Well, that's the thrill.
Yeah, it is for me. I mean, I spent 20 years as a professional nerd, so everything was about stable and stability and incremental growth and stuff. And now I'm just kind of like, my kids are grown. The only person I have to take care of is myself. So, fuck it, let's have some fun.
You sound like an emo. I cut myself so I could feel alive.
I hurt myself today.
But dude, that's all stocks. Like,
Yeah.
My retirement is basically me just investing my military pension and playing around with it, and with the inflation, I get it. I'm not like making killer gains. I'm just like not getting any killer losses. But yeah, for the longest time, I would just listen to all my friends who are all working corporate now, airlines, oil industry, that shit. And then once they start bitching about something, I'm like, oh, okay. I would go in and like
Yeah.
change my investments to it. And this is where it pisses off Carl because we've talked investments before, and he's like, price to earnings is like, what's price to earnings? He's like, are you fucking kidding me? All I do is I think the psychology. Hey, something news came out about this. I'm like, what would some fucking retard listening to that do? And if it's like good news, like, oh, quarterly profits are up. I'm like, I bet you anything, the guy listening to that thinks, perfect, everybody's going to buy, so I can sell my shit now. And sure enough,
Yeah.
it goes down. I'm like, why is stock going down? Pricing, earnings went up. I'm like, oh, I just learned that. Or where like some bad news happened, I think of all like the Bitcoin hodls that's like, hey, Bitcoin just dropped 60%. Now's the time to get in. I'm like, I bet you that's what they're going to do. And sure enough, they go
Yep.
up.
Yep.
So I've already managed to like double my pension. So right there, I saved myself like 7 years of military time just by thinking, what would a
Right.
retard do?
Right.
Although the
Well, I mean,
retard would stay in the
I did it.
military.
I do it by, I split my portfolio up, and I've got my long-term stuff that I'm probably not going to touch for another, 10 years. And then I've
Mhm.
got shorter term stuff that I've basically been using to live off of. So but I've been super degen with it. So if there's a yield farm on, Spooky Swap or somewhere that's, paying 900%, then I'll just
Damn.
throw a bunch into there for a while, and I'll reap those rewards, because you can be making, hundreds of dollars a day for a little while doing that. And then as the interest rate starts dropping, I, look for something else and then move it again. And then, then some weeks or months are so dry that you're living off the profits you made 2 months ago. But if you just have to be really careful, and you have to really plan that out, and it's really risky. But
Well, it doesn't make money if it's not risky. Isn't that the whole point? If it wasn't risky, everybody would
exactly.
do it.
Well, the volatility is the advantage. So, but since I'm somewhat retired, so I have the time to sit here and mess with it as much as I need to in order to not get burnt. Hopefully, so far I haven't. That doesn't mean I won't, but
That happens. To be fair, it's like I'm with you. Like I still have to worry about shit, but I'm not worried. Case in
yeah,
point, when I was first started investing in my early 20s, I'd listen to financial investors. They're like, yeah, banks are stable. Gold is on its way out. Trust me, you're going to go this way. I'm like, sounds good, sir. Yeah, I'm here for you. So that was in 2005, and you can clearly see how that ended.
yeah.
So I'm
Yep.
like, oh, this sucks. Banks just went to shit, and gold is like worth 1,000 an ounce now. What's up with that? Yeah, it's fine. Okay, here's the thing now. I don't remember what they put me in, but I'm like, I switched it over. 3 years later, the banks are back. Gold is still up, and I'm sitting here with like 5% return, which is
Yeah.
like 2% above inflation. So I'm like, great. I basically made chump change.
Yep.
And then I just took the advice of my childhood self. Do you see all those idiots you were raised around? Just don't do what they do. So I just started ignoring it.
Yeah.
Pulled all my money out of the investment, started doing it myself. First ever gains I made was when my dumbass just thought, what would the investor tell me to do, and do the opposite. I don't know how you guys do research and like discover things and watch things. You're like my brother that way. He used to gamble when we were in college, go to the casinos. My dad was actually a big gambler. It's why I don't do it. It's how our divorce happened. And he'd come home 3 a.m, kick in the door, just made rent, throws an
Nice.
envelope at me, goes to bed. Other days he would I could hear him like smash his door and not mine and go to bed. I'm like, oh, guess I'm covering rent this month.
Well, that's interesting because it is a gamble, especially the way I've been doing the short term crypto, and I discovered blackjack in 2014.
Oh, was that after
2014.
the whole counting card mathematics thing?
Well, I mean, the company I was working for at the time, we had a trade show in Vegas, and a friend of mine in the company was a big blackjack player, and so he's like, you should play some blackjack while you're there, and I was like, okay. And so I researched it, and discovered that you could memorize what the best way to play every single possible hand was and all that stuff. So I did,
Mm-hmm.
and
You're counting cards? Isn't that illegal?
I confessed to nothing.
Good
no,
answer.
but no,
Very
it's not
Pat
illegal.
Stedman-like of you to say that.
But no, it's not illegal. Well, I'm not going to film myself doing it.
Oh, hey
uh,
guys, you thought there was no value and it's just banter? Right there. He just saved you a passport and 5 years of time and possibly a new family.
there you go.
Never
The
missed an
second
opportunity to
wife.
shit on that guy. I
Look,
fucking
the
love it.
second wife is always uglier than the first one. So, look at that one. But yeah, so I did that, and I kind of fell in love with the game, and I think doing it at discovering that late in life when I was already a fairly disciplined person, and I wasn't, I didn't do any crazy shit, and I had some money to spend. Um, it kind of made sense. So I just I kind of got threw myself into it like everything else, and I think that and I look at blackjack more as just it's not just gambling. There's a lot that goes into if you're really playing serious over a long period of time. You learn a lot about yourself when you're sitting here at the table and you're having to make these decisions that are mathematically correct, but it just freaks you out to make that decision, and you have to decide: am I going to go with my emotions, or am I going to go with reason? And so ironically, doing that and approaching it that way, I think has helped me a lot with my investing, because it's a much similar uh, uh, activity. So there's a lot of carryover, and being able to make investment decisions, based on statistics or research or math is important. So that kind of worked out. But
Yeah, the discomfort thing. That's one of like the things in the Married Red Pill we always talked about, where a lot of guys are like, "Oh, I'm doing this thing like you guys said, but it feels weird and awkward, and should I reward or good behavior and pass this?" It's like, dude, you've been an absolute floor mat for 12 years, and now your concern is that you feel awkward about this new thing. It's like,
yeah,
if anything, you kind of need that. You require it.
you
I
got
wish
it.
I had.
I think
I wish I had your discipline though, like blackjack. I found my limit is for gambling is patience. I just get bored, like poker especially, and it's like you'll do it, and after about the hour and a half, 2 hour mark, I start getting a little more reckless. So I've just learned that's my hard limit. The ADD kicks in right then, so I can't do it. Kudos to you, better man than me.
Well, no, I mean, I get bored with I do get bored with poker,
Mm.
but with blackjack, I don't get bored with blackjack because it's how there are always some things in life that you just have some kind of weird affinity for, and it just you
Tell
sync
me
up
about it.
you sync up with it, right?
Yeah.
And just the thing I love about blackjack is just playing the game. So I've sat there from 11 at night to 6 in the morning, with a couple of pee breaks, and that's it. Just playing all night long, because for me, part of the fun is just seeing how long I can keep going before I need to yank myself out, because the losses are starting to stack up. So I have so much fun playing that I have the opposite problem. I have to pull myself out every now and then, or I'll turn it. It's kind of like just being tuned into the manosphere 24 hours a day. It would wreck you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have
It
to
does.
I have to yank myself out at some point. Just go outside, look at the
Oh,
sky, smell the vomit on the sidewalk in Vegas. That kind of stuff.
speaking of which, so I'll put it in. I'll put the answer in private chat. But so one of the guys in Patreon had just like a random one-off comment, and I usually keep this stuff inside there. But I asked him, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna anonymize this, but I gotta post it. And he was talking about how like he used to watch a bunch of content creators, and he noticed he was getting anxious and angry until he
Yeah.
stopped it and just started watching me. And then it's been good sailing ever since, actually doing shit, sorting his problems out. And it was funny, so I put that out there. And everybody underneath started commenting like who they thought the 3 content creators he was talking about. So keep it in your head, take a quick guess who you thought he was talking about that pissed him off so much and made him so angry. And then I'm going to put in private chat. Let's keep this between you and me here, but you'll laugh.
Well, you've got I've been scrolling through the chat. You've got a good chat.
Oh, dude, we worked hard for this though.
You even have a chicken there who coined this term, hypergamy. That's great.
Oh, is that Jennifer or is that the other one?
Jennifer H.
Yeah, yeah.
Hypergamy. That's pretty good.
Like partially it's demographics, but it's mostly just give a shit about your chat. I think a lot of guys are so worried, and growth probably a part of it too.
Hmm.
But it's like for the moderators, it's just I want when somebody comes here, like you're gonna see the chat, and that's gonna kind of give you an idea about what vibe or theme or tone
Hmm.
a thing has, right? And I'm all up for chucking shit and poking fun at things, but when you get guys in here just talking fucking nonsense, like that scares off people who are worth a damn. And so I
Yeah.
actually put an inordinate amount of effort into helping guys get this way. There was actually a guy, he used to just shit. Remember the fake Rolos? There's always a fake guy who pretends to be other people and shits in
Hmm.
the chat.
Hmm.
He's actually a good member now. Like, he's kind of likable in here. It just turns out he just wanted to be heard and he liked watching content creators freak out. So I think that's where I found the bond.
Hmm.
Like, he's the $5 super chat guy. Which, by the way, kudos to any of you guys who send $5 super chats to like Tate or Murphy or any of these other guys to watch them lose their shit. You guys, what we're doing for you with content, you're doing for us with content. It's the greatest
Dang.
time of my life to watch those.
I mean, I think there's an interest. There's, you brought that up, the guys that, or the accounts that people watch that make them, uptight and everything. And there's an interest. I have an interesting story about that. There was,
Ooh.
before I discovered this space, when I was divorced, and I was just relearning everything through trial and error, basically by myself without any advice whatsoever. I got into this. There was this group of people on Facebook who had all just gotten divorced around the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow we found each other. And we created this little Facebook group, and
He-Man
it was
Woman Haters Club?
no,
I interrupt. I'm sorry.
close. But the thing I found is that everybody got in there, and at first it was just oh, here's what happened to me, oh, I'm sorry that happened to you, that kind of thing, which is no shade there. You come through if you go through a traumatic divorce, something that's really rough, you need you're going to do a little bit of that, and you're going to commiserate with people who've had the same experience, and no shade at doing that for a little while. And then it's like, okay, well, where do we go from here? And so, we start figuring that stuff out. And then after a while, I noticed that some of us started to drift away because we started having, we started living life again. Right.
Right.
And then some people they were always in there, always hacking away about something. And, I see the same dynamic happen in the sphere.
Well, dude, you just told it in your blackjack story. That need to like
Yeah.
learn to detach from the game at some point.
Yeah. And so it's like, the way I know somebody's starting to get their shit together, not counting, people who do this for a living, like, you guys, is they don't have a lot of they don't really want to they don't want to stay in that space. They don't want to stay in that mindset of things are always in turmoil. How do I figure it out? Because eventually things aren't in turmoil anymore if you're doing it right, and you just get back to living a regular kind of life, but with better awareness and better decisions and better frame and all that kind of stuff. And
Wow,
you
you're
know
almost saying that it's a phase that you kind of use and it has a purpose, and then when it's done, you put it away.
Yeah, or you do what a lot of people do is you kind of hang around, and contrary to my all the kayfabe and bullshit I like to spout, there are guys that text me on a regular basis that I help with stuff who we kind of became friends, and they liked what I had to say, and so I just do it. They don't monopolize my time, so I don't mind doing it. But I've got dudes, and dudes that I help out every now and then with some, just talking about something or swapping notes, just like I do with my sons, still do that
Aw.
some too, and it's just, but you want, that's where you want to get to. You don't want to just stay, you don't want to keep spinning in those rapids. You want to eventually get out of it and just, go on to live the kind of life you want to live.
Well, that's where I was bringing up the Gresham's law thing, because I'm noticing this. There was a lot of content creators that kind of started here because, things sucked for me. I turned it around. Take a penny, leave a penny jar. Here you go. Here's some stuff for you. And then as they stay around, there's always this draw that, hey, if I just shit on Michaela Peterson, or if I shit on whoever the whammon of the week is,
Yeah.
the villain of the week in Star Trek or whatever, new goofy shit on their forehead, that I can get like 10%, 20% more views. And I'm doing it too. My Chick Talks, I fucking hate them. And I've told the guys, I'm like, I'm not really finding them that funny. That's theater for you fucking guys. Perversely enough, that's kind of the entertainment. It's like, hey, watch how much he enjoys this and not enjoys it.
Who was it said Twitter is about, big tits and a red bra or something like that? Big flaming tits and a red bra.
Oh, that was Rolo, because he was like,
Yeah.
he used to do Vegas ad graphic design and that. And he's like,
Right.
big red flaming tits is how you draw the most people in.
I mean,
Not more than 4 words, because nobody has time to read all that shit.
Exactly. But see, that's what the game is. That's what the game is on Twitter. I mean, I do that shit too, even though, except for, while I was publishing Punch Riot, I didn't really have anything that I was shilling or selling, but it's the same kind of thing. I would post some stuff that I put a lot of thought in and I thought was, pretty interesting. And, I get like 3 likes and nobody would share it. And then something stupid would pop into my mind. I would just throw it up there just to get it out of my head. And before I know it, there's 200 likes. There's 200 likes. I've got, 20 new followers and and it was just the dumbest piece of bullshit ever. But, that's it.
Oh, I know. It's nature of the beast. Like, I've just accepted it. I'm treating it. That's my business plan now, is to like you remember the old spoon, the medicine spoons that were like shaped like airplanes?
Yeah.
I'm like, this is content for 2022. Laminate shit, guys, by the way. Here's how you can stop being a piece of shit in your MGTOW apartment.
That's right. Well, I think everybody goes through all those different phases, but like you said, the idea is to not stay there. The idea is to keep moving.
Yeah.
And if you're still there after unless you've had like serious, real trauma that, and you have some sort of pathological disorder, I don't see why anybody would, stay heavily into that stuff for more than just a couple of 3 months or something.
If anything, it's the guys who have the worst trauma who tend to be here the shortest. And I have a theory, and I've seen it play out a lot, so I'm pretty comfortable with this one, which I know, more manosphere theory, thanks. Yeah, I get it. Fucking shut up. Yeah. So you get some hardship, pisses you off. You get your anger phase. Your workouts are the best they've ever been because you're angry and you're motivated. It feels really good. It's cathartic, right? Like that giant hate fuck on your bitch ex-wife. Then you send her back to her husband that stole you and the kids, or stole her and the kids. And then you're like, oh, that's awesome. And then you kind of get it out of your system, and then you're not really as angry anymore, but you find you're like, oh, now I don't really want to do anything because it's like, meh. But then you're going, and it's a subconscious thing where you're like, well, if I just fuck things up a little bit, I could tap into that again. Then you do something stupid. Your new girl cheats on you the exact same way as the old one because you haven't learned a fucking thing. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, I'm pissed off again. Let's get back to the gym. And I think there's this weird cycle that a lot of guys go through where they do that. And I'm seeing it now, like, and I don't want to throw shade at him because I like him. Red Pill Dad. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but he did the same thing. Illimitable Man. Actually, I don't mind shitting on him. So Illimitable Man did it. Red pill, laminate shit, laminate shit, laminate shit. I got a girlfriend. Save the West. Trad. And then his e-girlfriend sent Tate some like, this is me shitting on him in WhatsApp. And Tate's like, well, fine. I love calling people assholes for a living. And now he's back to like laminate shit. And I think it's that same scenario, and you're seeing it in content creators. This ones you were talking about, the Zach scenario here, where it's, hey, look at me, what I'm doing right now. This is great. You guys need to do this too, or you're not fucking all that is man. And then some bullshit happens, and then they fucking get angry again, and they do some more shit, and you're watching. And I think that's how you get the Cernovich types. That's just like the newest shiny thing is my new marketing strategy, and I'm just going. Like, I get why it works, because the same people that are emotionally stunted creating the content resonate just perfectly with that emotionally stunted people that ignore their frontal lobe and buy based on a limbic brain. So of course you're going to buy Gorilla Mindset supplement juice, because you're just as much of a fucking idiot as Cernovich. There's Gresham's law. So meanwhile, a guy who's got his shit together and is like, here, clean your room, but like with fucking, doesn't really last as long because it's way easier to tap into that limbic brain shit. You try telling people in their frontal lobe to buy something, fucking good luck. Ask me how I know.
Well, it's one of the reasons why I don't like people under 40. And I know that's a general statement, and there are exceptions to that rule, is that the thing now is, especially in the content space, is that there's all these guys who are in their late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, And that's about the time dudes are finally starting to figure shit out for
Hmm.
themselves. Maybe, that's the earliest time they usually do. Um, and so, they figure a couple things out. Life starts getting a little bit easier. So all of a sudden they're an expert and they start, spouting off, here's all the things you have to do to get to where you're at. And it's usually, like you said, it's a list of all the things that they've done and that they value. But the truth is that the reason they got to where they're at probably doesn't have anything to do with most of those things. It's just they're a little bit older and more mature, and they've learned a couple lessons, and they, make better decisions now, or they know how to, get a couple things done, or they get more respect for people from people, in their workplace because they're older or whatever. And
Yeah.
so all of a sudden they're reinventing the wheel, right? And meanwhile the rest of us sitting there looking at it like, no shit, that's just, that's just the phase of life you're in. But they're treating it like it's some kind of new manifesto to follow. And you're not a real man if you don't have kids. You're not, all this other bullshit. And I just laugh at that stuff, and I can't believe, I really can't believe that people lap that shit up. I just can't.
I'm
um
with you. I have no idea. I used to
but
think it was just people like laughing at it with you, like, look at this retard. But then I'm like, I know they're too invested on it. I'm like, no, I think this is real. But
I've
that's
got a
actually
couple.
Bruce put that out. That's the only thing that I will praise that he's ever produced in the last like 10 years was
Yeah,
that nobody takes you serious till you're 35.
yeah.
And he had some actually good points on it. And it was partially, like you said, it's partially that you're getting your shit together. But a big part of it is that people just assume people that age have their shit together.
Yeah,
And I think that's a big part of it.
yeah. I mean, there are a couple guys I know who never had kids, and I would love for some of these dudes to go and get up in their face and tell them they don't really understand what being a man is because they never had kids. Because I know the shit they've done in life. I know where they've been,
Mm-hmm.
and they would chew these guys up and spit them out. And that, just the fact that you're ignorant enough to make that kind of a statement shows that you really shouldn't be out there broadcasting your shit to anybody yet, because you haven't really, you just haven't really gotten through it. And it's not necessarily an age thing, because there are a lot of dudes out there who are, at 30, they're much farther along than I was at 30.
Yeah,
and
it's an
and I
experience
commend
thing.
that. But
Have you
yeah,
seen some shit?
yeah. And it boggles my mind that, that
Kind of
that
makes me feel
people would take
comfortable in a
that
way.
seriously.
It makes me feel good. In the same way that, like, the free speech argument, like, we need what's that stupid website that all the neo Nazis go on to? Somebody help me out. What's the name of that thing? Not
Mhm.
Drudge Report. Stormfront. Stormfront.
Oh yeah, yeah,
How everybody, like, all the free speech guys are like, I need this place here because as long as they're allowed to speak, I know I'm good to go.
yeah. Yeah,
So when I look at like this, like,
yeah.
I'm 30. Let me show you what's up, dudes. As long as they're making a livable income, I'm like, this is fucking great. Once they start getting banned, I start to worry because then I'm the new asshole, and everybody's looking like, look at this fucking idiot.
I always joked that I think it was June of 2020, my first grandchild was born.
Oh,
And
congratulations!
eh, thanks.
I didn't do anything.
That's right, I didn't. Um, and but it was like, so I started joking. My joke then was, I started, telling people that I was going to be putting a new how to be a granddad course on Gumroad in a couple of weeks. And it's the same kind of thing, because there are a lot of guys out there, they have kids who are 8, so now they're telling everybody how to raise their kids. And I'm like, in my opinion, until your kid's at least 30, 35, you don't have any business telling anybody how to raise their kids, because you don't know what they're going to do yet. And
I'd argue at least 13.
it could all go horribly awry, because I've seen
Yeah.
it. I've seen it.
Well, for me, like, I'm family of 5. All of us at 13 is when we start, like, if the haves and the have-nots, the do and the ain't shits, that's where the separation kind of happens. Like that first moment at 13 where you run away
Yeah.
from home for like 4 hours until you realize you don't know how to feed yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. My
Yep.
sisters were all like that. My brother and I were like that. And like, I could tell my mom, she was raised in a family of 20. So she's probably like, I get it. So you're like, I'm out of here. Fuck you guys. I'm running away. And they're like, all right. Sure enough, there's already the plate waiting for you. You're like, hey, welcome back. Just don't say anything. Let them save some face. But it's funny because I see, like, you're right. I see that all these guys, like, dude, being a parent is the most fulfilling thing on earth, and they're like, yeah, your kid's under 2. There's the reason it's terrible too. So I remember that too, because like my stepdad was not a very attentive parent, and so I was the man of the house.
Yeah.
Probably changed more diapers than half of these power dads out there, but that's neither here nor there.
Well,
And
you
just
know,
watching like just that process go through, even as like a dispassionate observer, I'm like, ah, fuck this. Telling me you know what you're talking about. I don't think you do, sir.
no, I enjoyed being a dad, and I still do, to some degree. But there's, you know,
It's like owning a dog.
it's it's like it's like owning a dog that can really love you back like you love it, but usually doesn't. I mean, but that's okay because it doesn't really know any better,
Yeah.
and but it's not really all that hard. It's not, it's only difficult if you make it difficult, or if you are difficult, and it's not as far as being a fulfilling thing goes. No matter how good of a dad you are, you're going to see your kids, make, you know, some bad mistakes, either through, intention or ignorance. And
Yeah.
you have to sit back and watch all that shit and know how to either let it happen, and not try to, save your kid or fix them or anything like that. And that's a shitty, miserable thing to do. There's nothing great about that. So
Mm-hmm.
all these guys that say, raising kids has been a beautiful, fulfilling experience. I don't look at it that way. I love my kids, of course, and I enjoy being their dad, and but it's they're starting a company, and helping start a company, and then providing jobs to 50 people, and have this thing go from just a bunch of talk to an actual thing. Um, to me, that was kind of more fulfilling, because that was something that I actually, had a lot of input in and did. With kids, you're basically, you love them and you keep them alive. That's
Yep.
it.
Well, we're kind of predisposed to it too. I can't remember. I'm sure there's some egghead somewhere who's like, "Well, your hormones going to blah blah blah," and I'm like, I think yeah, it's you have to love your kids. Like your body forces you to, and I think that's a good thing. I don't know why some single moms are fucking this up by hating their kids, but whatever. Neither here nor there.
Yeah.
The whole thing though, it's just you can tell it's when I see the power dads talking about that shit. It's the same thing when I hear about the strong, independent women that are neither strong, independent, and barely a woman. It's kind of one of those self pep talks. Oh yeah, you got this, sir. You're what's the Stuart Smiley thing where it's like you're great and people love you, sir.
Good enough, smart enough, and people like me.
That's the one. That's all I hear when I hear that.
Yeah, exactly.
And they just keep,
That's what it is. That it's like patting yourself on the back at 30 years old for still being able to pee into the toilet.
mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I coached baseball. I did all that dad stuff. Never once did we sit around at the ballpark going, "Yeah, we're a we're a badass fraternity of pirates here because we teach our kids how to hit the fucking ball and to throw it and to catch it." It was the narcissism of looking back at every little thing that you do that's not that big a deal, and then elevating it into some sort of grand experience and capability
Mm-hmm.
is just the craziest thing. There's a book that was written in the 70s called Culture of Narcissism by this guy named Christopher Lasch. And it basically goes through how, why people in America in particular are like that now. And it was really kind of creepy because it was written so far back. And, so he thought it was bad in the 70s and 80s, but, I'm glad he's dead and he couldn't see how things are now, because this would probably drive him to suicide.
Oh, dude, the first time he would watch, I think I got one of my chick talks. It's one coming out next week, where this chick was like, the premise was, how long would it have been since your last suicide attempt if it worked? And she's sitting there, tits hanging out, kind of, doing whatever. And I'm going, is she really milking her previous suicide attempt for clout?
Yeah.
But on this one, this is just one-off thing. The Andrea Rodolfo Nadia, indeed, your testosterone lowers when your wife gets pregnant. Let me ask you this then. Nick, you've had a pregnant wife and the kids. During the first start of pregnancy till probably the kids turn like 1 or so, did you miss a lot of sleep? Like less than you would have gotten otherwise?
Probably.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this. Is a shitty sleep schedule going to lower your testosterone more than some magical power of a pregnant lady?
That I don't know. Probably.
Yeah.
I would think that sleep deprivation probably has a much. Here's a story for you.
Uh-huh.
You know, of course, I never had my testosterone levels checked, so I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know about that anyway. But when my ex was pregnant with my kid, uh, I mean, I think honestly, I think my testosterone production went up because I was horny all the damn time. And it was a really
Huh.
weird thing because she was getting all swelled up and you know, not nearly as cute as she was before. But I wanted to bang that shit all the damn time. And it was really weird because I was more I was hornier than I was just in the months leading up to that, and I do remember that. And it was a crazy kind of thing. I don't know what that was, and maybe I'm just a you know, maybe I'm just a mutant. But
Maybe.
I didn't lose any sleep while she was pregnant. When the kid was born, uh, yeah, for that first year, I lost a lot of sleep because he didn't sleep a lot, and
Colic or
so
something like that?
he would be up screaming, and I'd have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work every day, and he'd be in there screaming. And you know, you're not supposed to, you know, let your baby sleep with you and all that other shit. And I just told my wife, you know, you need to go sleep with that kid every night if you want to, because I have to work all fucking day. And you know, I don't care what Dr. Spock says, I've got to, you know, I got to get a few hours here or I'm going to be dead tomorrow. And you know, but
Yeah.
yeah, sleep deprivation the first year was rough.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember from basic training, it was the funniest. It's amazing how comfortable you get with a bunch of dudes after you've had to shower together for like 6 weeks. But I remember it was like 6 weeks into basic, and then all of a sudden we're just polishing boots or something, and one of the guys looks up to me. He's like, "Have you guys noticed something?" He's talking to the bunch of us. I was like, "What's this?" Like, "Have you noticed you just haven't jerked off in the last 6 weeks?" We're like, "Holy shit, yeah, yeah." And it was just because of the sleep deprivation. Like
Hmm.
everybody who lived in the same town that started basic, they didn't sleep with their girlfriends. Nobody jerked off. It was just like the sex drive dropped off a hill, and that was because we were getting 4 hours of sleep a night. You're like, holy shit, what did they do to us? They
Yeah.
actually had to have a brief because somebody thought that they were slipping something into the food that so that it would kill our sex drives, and they actually had to tell us, it's like, no, we don't slip drugs into your food to brainwash you. It's just because you guys haven't slept in 6 weeks. So don't start freaking out. You know it's
Well,
bad when the drill instructors are like, calm the fuck down. It's just
well,
because you're tired.
you know, you know, that's that the testosterone question is an interesting one to me, and
Yeah.
all the things that factor into it, because I do have low T now, and I refuse to go on replacement therapy and all that stuff. I'm actually kind of relieved it's a little bit lower. Because I had a really high sex drive when I was younger, and you know, talking about those times where, you know, uh, the wife and I would have sex, you know, early in the morning before I went to work. And there were days that, you know, if we did it earlier and early enough, I'd, you know, later that morning when I was in the shower, I'd jerk off in the shower because I was horny again. And
Get it out of the system.
I had a raging sex drive when I was younger, and it was kind of a pain,
Oh, I can imagine.
you know.
Well, I mean, yeah, I can imagine. I've done the second ones for me thing too. So I mean,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I mean, it was more, it was just like, you know, I couldn't make this hard on go away, and this is really starting to get irritating. So, you know, quick one in the shower, and then at least you can focus on your work for the day. And that, you know, that was you know,
Well,
so my testosterone level may have dropped a little bit, but it may have been so high that it didn't matter.
yeah. Well, I think that's how it works for most healthy guys. Back before the cigarette ban is the meme the kids are using now. All right, I'm gonna do this super chat and then carry on with this. Brett the Bachelor. This is equivalent to the Man Show for me. It's either this or join some Order of Man community for some laughs over coffee. Oh yes, the War Room Conference, Masculine Excellence. It's always you always got to be fluffed. You can't just join a community. Like say what you want about the 21 convention and 21 studios, but at least it's not like the big dick society of fucking awesome men. Alpha alpha. Wink wink.
You know, again, being an old irrelevant fuck, I have to say that, you know, for us it was, you know, I always had friends. You know, it was not that big a deal. And so, you know, your friends are your, they call them tribes now and all this other bullshit, because everything's got to be a ride at Disneyland now. You can't just have some friends. You can't just have some friends. You have to be on a theme park ride all the damn time, which is one of the things that book I mentioned, Culture and Narcissism, kind of implies and talks about. But it's like, why can't you just have some friends and do man shit without having to be celebrated for it? And I think
it's the narratives.
well, I mean, I do get I had that same kind of when I got divorced and I decided, you know what, I'm going to do things differently now. I'm not going to worry about anything. I'm going to get to where I can, date a bunch of women all at once, spinning plates, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I did all that, but I didn't really feel the need to celebrate it. Although it is kind of a relief at first, because there is that societal conditioning that blames men for everything. And once you flip that script in your head, that is a powerful thing, and it's an important thing. But then again, the goal is not to just stay there, and to try to keep a spotlight on yourself. The goal is to get out there and keep living your life, because you're going to die someday, and you don't want to be sitting on your deathbed. Man, if I could have just watched one more Manosphere video, I think my life would have been complete.
Yeah, I know. But I was thinking about that part too. You were talking about your the shower high tea thing. Do you remember, like, I know most pickup guys, they talk about how some guys need to have a couple drinks before you pick up chicks or whatever, and they talk about it as a buffer, it's a bad thing, and you just don't want to do it. I had a similar problem to you, and this was like I didn't even put this in the book, because I just it was so background. But I had reverse whiskey dick. So like, what that means, like, I would drink. I'd still be able to function perfectly fine, but I'd last forever.
Yeah.
And I noticed, as much as guys are like, yeah, you want to be the stud in bed, after like 30 minutes, you're just like, fake it so you can go to bed. And that got me to stop drinking. And I was thinking about this. There's always 100 little experiences like that I learned when I was doing pickup. The things that make it more fun to tell you the story about the stripper than it is to actually date the stripper.
Yeah.
And I think, back to your point here, is there's an irreverence that you kind of need to have. They call it aloof, but it's basically a reverence, just not giving a shit about most things, almost like actively disdaining it,
right?
But playfully. And I think that's the big mark, at least from what I've gathered from most people who kind of make it and get it, is they realize you don't need, like you said, you don't need your tribe, you don't need your war room, you just need, like, you can call it like T-Rex army. That's my community. But we don't really give a shit about T-Rexes. It's just a joke, because all the no-fap guys is like, well, if your arms were as short as the T-Rex, you'd never be able to fap in November, so you'd already win. Plus, he's the most dangerous alpha predator in the thing. I would have used a giraffe, but I can't remember. Mish, the fucking Arab Chad, started with the T-Rex, and they just took off. So I guess you can't really pick your mascots. Your mascots pick you, right?
Right, but there's some of these things. Some of these guys build their entire shtick around a mascot, and then some of them just use it as just a way to have fun, like the way you guys do. And that's you can always see that, because the context is everything, right? If the context is the mascot, then you're on a Disney ride, you're in a theme park. You're not tapping into the real world. And and I think in one sense I just don't take any of that seriously. In another sense, I do.
Which you shouldn't. Absolutely shouldn't.
Right. But then in another sense, I do kind of look at the guys who eat that shit up with a spoon, and I think, well, you deserve what you get. You can, there's most people who are not pathological, who are not in the DSM-4 or 5 or whatever they're up to now. Or 5 now. Yeah.
They had to switch the trans issue from a disorder into like a celebration.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but remove trans, add cis heteronormative something.
The guys who aren't, if you're not in there, you know deep down if you're mind fucking yourself or not. You know that you're afraid of outcomes, so you don't go approach chicks or whatever. And and I was fortunate enough, just having been married 20 years, I was like, man, I want to do something completely different than I'd ever done. I want to basically go back and do what I did in my 20s, except be more successful. You
bought
at it this
a denim
time.
Jacket and an IROC Z, didn't you?
I would have if I could have found one.
I need the T-top.
I need to, and so I went and, so I've basically been reliving my 20s in my 50s, and except, a little bit better judgment, a little bit more competent, more money to spend. It's a lot, it's a lot of, it's a lot of fun. So, but you have to go out there and do that stuff, and, discovering how to be. You don't need another dude to tell you that you need to quit being afraid of rejection. You're afraid of rejection. Just go out and fucking get over it. And that's
Yeah.
that's the reason I don't help anybody, really. I don't try to, is because I don't have the patience for it. It's like, I don't want to hear about all your bullshit. Just go out there and get it done. And that's right or wrong. That's why I'm not that guy, because I'm just not suited for that.
Well, that's the pitch lately, didn't you know, Nick? It's how many guys do you think are? I mean, how many guys have you seen on here now that is basically spend 80% of their marketing time convincing people of something they don't want to be convinced of, as opposed to like the how. It's always about the why. Men are. It's always the sales pitch. Men aren't getting laid now. Women are shit, and men are awesome, but you're undervalued, and the West is destroyed, and everything. And they're always trying to just convince you that you need to be this masculine man, but not a single guy I've noticed says even like, all right, so the first thing you need to do is get on a workout program, or the first thing you need to do is stop eating shit all day, or the first thing you need to do is stop drinking chick drinks. You don't want to be a chick drink drunk.
Yeah.
Drink whiskey, but it's never the how. And I think that's where you notice it too. You're like, why am I trying to convince people that don't want to be convinced?
Right.
And I remember pissing off who's that producer? Tim Pool's show. I don't know, Fresh and Fit for White Guys. But there was this one chick on there who's a producer for it. And I put out a tweet. It's like, incel is a choice. And she's like, what the fuck? And I started laughing. Because it is. But here's the thing. And this is the part I loved about it. So there's this MRA, champion MRA person, men's rights. So you automatically know it's a chick. Yeah. Middle-aged soccer moms love to be the champion of the disenfranchised men. And she had this guy who had, like, remember that movie with Mr. Glass, the Samuel L. Jackson, where his bones were brittle?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's this guy on Twitter who apparently has that. Like, there's a real disease and he had it. And she trotted him out to dunk on me on this conversation. What about him? You're saying this is a choice for him? I'm like, wait a minute. Let me get this straight, Susan. You literally have fucking this poor bastard on your orbiter speed dial just so you can win conversations about men's rights. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? That's like the most horrific shit ever. Yeah. And she called me a Nazi and banned me. I'm like, all right, whatever.
That's like Joe Biden saying, these poor black kids in the inner city don't know how to use the internet, kind of shit.
I know. And I was just like, holy shit, it's amazing. No wonder why all these black pill guys call everybody a grifter and everybody's out to get them. Because it is. Everybody is just trying to squeeze the last pennies from these like neat guys who aren't getting laid, which in fairness, I think that shows you really got a shitty grift to you, because it's like, there's way better low-hanging fruit. 33-year-old drunk chicks on SSRIs are a way better market.
Well, you saw, speaking of movies, you saw Taxi Driver, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
How could you not?
to me, a lot of the sphere is just that scene where De Niro's looking in the mirror saying, what was he saying when he's looking in the mirror? He said, "You're talking to me?" Yeah. That's what a lot of them. You were
going to say it was the part where he went on the date with Elvis's ex-wife there.
No. That would actually
take a date to a peep show? What the fuck? What the fuck is wrong with you, you weirdo?
Well, if you buy my 10-step course to how to take a chick to a peep show, you'd be able to do that. But you're not at that level yet. So
speaking of lazy content, holy shit. I'm still pissed about it. I like Blue Pill Professor, but the way he turned Dread into like a 12-step program like Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way, man. It's like, if you're going to come up with a system, you can't just do arbitrary. Like you said, it's always 7 or 10 rules for something. Number 5 surprises you. Here's 12 steps to this. And I'm just like, if it was a real program based on real metrics, the number wouldn't align just so perfectly with everybody else's fucking pseudo-Christian Alcoholics Anonymous course. And no offense to any of you guys. If you stopped drinking and they helped you, kudos to you. Whatever.
How did anybody stop drinking before the internet?
Yeah, who knows?
I guess nobody did, but I mean, that's the thing. Rob and I always joke about on Let 'Em Burn, though. It's like, I always got laid when I was younger because I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be able to. It's just like I had that raging heart on, so I needed to do something about it, and I got tired of my hand, and and
Hey,
when we
stop
were
quoting my shit, sir.
when we were when that's what I was supposed to do, right? Uh, that's like guerrilla marketing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, but
Wonderful.
it was like, nobody ever told me I wasn't Chad enough to get laid. I'm only 5'10", and I'm glad, it's kind of like, I was too dumb to know I wasn't
Wasn't good enough.
a 1% man. So you get laid your whole life, and then finally later on you realize that you weren't supposed to.
Yeah.
It's
So
crazy.
ridiculous. By the way, I will say this: the only people who talk about like the 6 foot shit are guys who are over 6 foot. Never seen manlets talk about that, other than the incels, but they'll bitch about anything. They're talking about your jaw type or your overbite, which I love. Like one incel was in my chat once, way back in the day. He said I had a class 2 jaw, and that's why I'll never get laid. I'm like, I should fucking tell my wife that. But
Well,
then I looked
and
it up. I'm like, what the fuck is a class 2 jaw? Is it like a driver's license? And it turns out it was just an overbite. I'm like, fuck, who
okay.
doesn't have an overbite other than like the fucking guy in Deliverance who's gonna fuck? Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not playing the banjo, dudes.
Well, see, that's why the one of the reasons why I'm always just so hard on people for, I got to read another book, I got to watch another video, is because I didn't have any books or videos when I got divorced. I didn't really even know there were any. Didn't really think
Mm,
about it, and it was just like, all right, I just got to go out there. I got to, soldier on and figure this shit out, because I wanted to get laid a lot,
hmm.
and I mean, and we tell horror stories on Let 'Em Burn, and I'll tell some of the horror stories that I have for, some of the chicks that, ended up being less than ideal. But I also was, dated chicks who I would consider at any time were way out of my league, and it ended up becoming, pretty easy to do. And again, it was, nobody told me I couldn't, and I was just tired of, all right, well, I'm going to go for her because she's a low hanging fruit. I was like, no, I want to go for that one because, there's a challenge there. And I just got really back into a competition with myself,
Yeah,
and I think most dudes could do that if they wanted to, but they just, it's just looking in the mirror like Robert De Niro with the mohawk.
it's just world fallacy thing. It's guys think girls are guys. I know this is the part I love when I hear Rolo's points about like blank slate equalism and shit like that. And guys will, yeah, absolutely. But oh, I can't hit on her. She's out of my league. And you're going, hey, so let me get this straight. You are all about looks. She's hotter than you, therefore she won't like you. And you're sitting here shitting like men and women aren't the same. Is it entirely possible that men and women don't put the same importance on looks? Well,
Yeah.
some chick on the internet complained and said that wasn't true. It's like, yeah, chicks lie. I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody told you this. They actually make shit up and they
So do
believe it
guys.
wholeheartedly. And that's why their lies are so good because they
Yeah.
believe it more than you do.
Well, the thing that bothers me the most about, a lot of dudes in this space is they're actually talking man shit, but they're approaching it from a feminine mindset and a feminine point of view, because there's a lot of the power dads, and a lot of what I see going on there is, you can call yourself a patriarch, you can call yourself all this shit all you want, that doesn't make it true. And
Mm-hmm.
so all they're doing is inflating their egos and sort of playing to the running narrative in their heads, which doesn't really get them anywhere. Yeah, be confident in yourself. Yeah, have a positive outlook. Yeah, you know, men are shit. We are the shit. Okay, that's great. But, then go out there and do something with it instead of just, pumping each other up, on the internet. And that ends up, that's exactly what the girls do.
Yeah, yeah. Men raised as defective women. Last psychiatrist, by the way. I know he doesn't really care about the manosphere, but he's such a good read for it. He actually brought up a good point on that. It's where I come up with my essay, Sex and Violence, the idea of like what makes a man or whatever. That guys love bragging about being a good dad because there's no way to quantify it. Like, are you a good dad? Well, whatever bullshit you come up with in your head makes you a good dad. So good enough. It's one of the big things I drive home to the guys that like coming up with their own goals of what they're trying to get out of the red pill. And that's why I love it, because sex, you can't fudge it. Like, did you fuck her or not? Like, I'm an alpha male. Well, in 15 minutes, we'll find out, sir. And I think that's why a lot of guys work so hard to avoid those things. And they always make up their own stupid, arbitrary, things. I did the same thing myself. My pickup day, first chapter of my book, same thing. Mike, my wingman, was 2-1 crushing it over me. But I always had to come up with some, I won the popular vote fucking bullshit, where I was still a better person than him. Yeah, he slept with her, but then she ended up crying and making a mess out of his place. Well, he got angry and kicked her out, and he was emotional, and I'm much more stoic. Like, literally, I didn't use those words, because at the time, we didn't know there was terms for being a fucking retard, but... And I look at it now, and you see it, and like you said, you look back at all the stupid shit you did, and you're watching guys take that, and then, like, amp it up to 12.
Right.
And it hurts, because I know there's nothing I can tell him. He won't listen to me. I wouldn't have listened to me.
Right.
And you just have to, here's the fork. There's the light socket. Fill your boots, man. At the other end, once you're done, you can come talk.
Yeah. The thing about, not being able to quantify what is a good dad, you're exactly right about that, because, first of all, what I always say is, the people who get to decide if I was a good dad or not is my kids and the legal system. That's who decides whether I was a good dad or not.
They're both biased anyways. You can't really trust them.
And whether my kids are good kids or not, I'll never know, because chances are good, hopefully I'll be dead before they are. So, I could die, and then they could start robbing banks and, killing people and making lampshades out of their skin. I don't know. I don't think that would happen. Just
imagine they become Batman when you die.
But that's kind of the point. I mean, I've known people who barely paid attention to their kids, and their kids are, some of my best friends, and they're phenomenal people. I know other people
kids, isn't that what they call them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all were back then, but then I know other people who doted on their kids, and their kids are worthless sacks of shit. There's so many variables and gradations there that, you don't trying to quantify it, and trying to give somebody a checklist and say, do these things, and you're all going to be great. It's more complicated than that. I mean, it's both simpler and more complicated than that, because you just don't know how that kid's going to act as an adult in the future. You don't know what they're going to be presented with, or what's going to happen to them voluntarily or involuntarily. There's so much there, that sitting around and patting yourself on the back for something that people have been doing because of a biological imperative for hundreds of thousands of years is just ridiculous.
Well, I just love when you try and narrow it down. I remember, it was this one of the Mormon copywriter guys. He absolutely hated this. Like, it was something about, like, if your dad was suboptimal, how would you raise your kids, or something like that. I'm like, why don't you do exactly what your dad did? Because he raised you, and you're talking about how great you are. And he's like, that's nihilist. And I'm like, am I wrong?
Yeah.
It's like, do you want to be, as the greatest, one of my favorite quotes, again, from Last Psychiatrist was, do you want to be a good dad, or do you want to raise good kids? Because if you don't know the difference, don't worry, your kids will tell you.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And I remember you see this, like, and people will parrot that too. I think Jack Murphy is the great example. You got to raise good kids. Meanwhile, he's bitching that he can't, play baseball with his kids. Well, that's funny, man. Yeah, and he's like, I can't go play sports with my kids anymore. It's like, well, I thought you were trying to be the good dad, not be their best friend.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to go to baseball games. Dude, my stepdad was a piece of shit, but I learned a lot from him. Mostly how to fight your stepdad, and it removes your fear from everything the rest of your life.
There you go.
He doesn't get credit for it, but, like, I learned.
Yeah, there's a whole, pedestalization of fatherhood has become a real problem, I think, and that's something else that I don't understand, because I've never seen that before. Never. Yeah. Maybe sometimes in some churches that used to happen, but now it's like all over the place, secular, religious, everywhere. It's that kind of thing. And I get it, guys. You're happy. You're happy that you realize you're not a second-class citizen, and you want to assert yourself now. And I get that, and that's a good thing. But quit talking about it. Just do it.
Yeah. Well, I think Chesty had one of my favorite takes on it too. It's, for a lot of these guys, having kids is the first time ever that somebody treats them like an alpha male, like they are perfect and they're great. It's like, this is the first time in my life I feel like a hot chick. And
Well,
it makes
because
sense now when you see
yeah.
these guys. They've never been worshipped
Well, you
ever.
do get, and as a dad, unless you're a true piece of shit, you do get pedestalized by your kids and everybody for a very brief time.
Hmm.
And the problem is that that doesn't last, and then you want that to be the reality, and it never was the reality. It was just, a confluence of all the, it was a perfect storm of all the right things at the right time. Your kids were young, you weren't, getting drunk and beating them up. You were feeding the family, paying the mortgage, and you're the guy. And
Yeah.
that lasts for, a couple 3 years if you're lucky. And then after that, you just go back to being, you're lower than whale shit again.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be that way. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, yeah, and I'd argue it only matters if you're one of those guys that needs to be, that we were talking about the narrative, narcissism, whatever. You need to be the good dad.
Yeah.
Like I said, my mom, when I ran away from home, she just like made dinner. It's like, whatever, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. She gave zero fucks whether I thought she was the greatest girl on earth or not. I mean, she
Yeah.
cared, but in that scenario, she's like, whatever, you'll be back, you'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially what it was like in my house as a kid, and with my kids too, for the most part. And the thing that yet again, it comes back to everything has to happen in the right now. Everything has to be an experience right now, because both of my kids came back in their 20s, to me, and they were like, all those years I thought you were an asshole. You really weren't that big of an asshole. I was an asshole too. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, yeah, asshole plus asshole equals more asshole. And we laugh about it, have a drink, and then fuck it, and that to me, that's where at least maybe you're on the right track, is your kids want to come back to you later and say, yeah, mom kind of stoked the fires against you a little bit, and she was giving us what we wanted and you weren't, and all that kind of stuff.
But like, I
Um,
get it.
and I get it now. And if talk about wanting to be, if you really want to be a masculine father, just shut up and take it when they're being ridiculous. Don't change and don't bend to their will, but don't get butthurt about it either. And or at
That's the
least
big,
you're going to get a little butthurt. Just keep it to yourself.
yeah.
Go
But
talk to your
even
buddies.
over 60, stupid loner. He was the oldest guy we had who took the red pill. He did it at 65, and he had a great point on that. It's like the majority of the time you're going to spend with your kids are them as adults.
Yeah.
Which, and I know, and this is like years before Jordan Peterson's "don't do things to your kids that would make you resent them" or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm like, wow, a couple of those rules actually made sense then. Don't bug kids skateboarding, and raise your kids not to hate them when they're older. Of course, I
Exactly.
kind of took that like to the extreme when I started because I was like piss and vinegar at the time. I was like, whatever. If Rwandan kids can grow up and get over their fucking hardship of being a child
That's
soldier,
right. That's
mom
right.
not hugging you enough, you can survive. Your kids will be okay.
well, my kids, I had this, like when we were younger, uh, there was that Everybody Loves Raymond show, which is a horrible
Oh
TV
yeah.
show. But we'd watch it sometimes at night, and the dad on there, anytime the kids complained about anything, would just say, "Quit whining, you Nancy." And I started saying that to my kids, when we would be doing something, they would get all butthurt about something stupid. I would just, quit whining, you Nancy. And so for a while, my older boy got really pissed off about that. He would go tell his friends. And so I would go look on his Facebook, and anytime he'd post on his Facebook, all his friends would reply with, "Quit whining, you Nancy." And and so I kind of became famous as being like this cruel dad, because everybody's parents were buying them BMWs, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to make them as happy as possible. And then later on, of course, again, they came back and they're like, yeah, I just got butthurt about that. It was just all in fun. And I was like, right. And it's just, there's been a big shift, into, I mean, there has been a big shift into, feminization of dudes and all that. And a lot of people buy into it. And I get that. But, you know, the answer is not to swing all the way back in the other direction and be butthurt about not being worshipped as a dad. The answer is just to do your fucking job, just like you've always had to do, and get over it.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember. Oh, dude, this is old. This is like first year Red Pill 2008, 2009. I want to say Keone Galt, but it might have been Ian Ironwood. Doesn't matter. A whole bunch of names. You guys don't know who I'm talking about. There was fuck, I'm dribbling my train of thought here because it was really fucking good. God damn it. Oh, because we were talking about the feminization of men thing and how they go one way or the other. The point was that Black America is 10 years ahead of like rest of Midwestern America when it comes to how like masculinity works. And the point there was when you get all these, you know, broken households, I think, what is it? Black America is like 80% single moms or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And that guys ended up going one of two directions. They either became hyper masculine, you know, thug culture and shit like that, or they went hyper feminine. Like, because I think, simp was basically came out of the ghetto as a term. And so that's what you ended up happening without masculine guidance. Guys, you know, for or against, but it was always horribly skewed one way or the other. Meanwhile, dad guys, I don't want to say fly up the middle because kind of lean towards thuggish side, just not too far.
Yeah.
And it seems to be that's the case now too, where it's just guys, they don't know what they want to identify as. They don't know what their path is. And so they either look at their mom as a source of validation or they look at her as like a source of what's the opposite I should do is exactly that. And then you end up with these caricatures. And that's how you can get some fucking idiot with a cigar in front of a rented or bought Lamborghini at an auction, you know, whatever. It's 40% less. Why not? Which, awesome pickup technique, by the way. I learned that in Kelowna when I went to go party with the Hells Angels right after basic training. Scared out of my fucking mind. Because I thought cops were like just waiting and they're watching, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, so I bought a 1977 Ferrari. I'm like, why'd you do that? He goes, because now I have a Ferrari and it was only 30 grand.
Nice.
So we drove the Ferrari to the bar and I'm like, this is fucking awesome. He said, you want to drive it? I'm like, sure. And I'd driven tractors, so like I can handle the worst of clutches. And he's like, oh, this one's gentle. I was like, holy fuck, this is like butter.
Yeah.
No wonder why people hate driving tractors. But yeah, that was fun times. But yeah, so buy if you're gonna buy a Ferrari, buy one that's vintage, like 30, 40 years old. Although the way inflation's going, I hear that like vintage cars are now like an investment.
Probably, yeah.
People buying the old Crown Royals, or was it Crown Vic or Crown? Which one's the cop car? Crown Vic.
Crown Vic.
Yeah, buying Crown Vics now for like 36,000.
That's
like,
crazy.
Dude, cost
that
much new.
You can pick them up for $500, you know.
Yeah.
And they were in pretty decent shape, you know.
Yeah, back in the day, you used to buy a car literally. It's like I'm just gonna drive it until it breaks. I'm not fixing shit, and then buy $500 for a new car the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. I mean, the problem is becoming the caricature, you know, and that's. I grew up in the South, all right, and so I realized we do things different down here, and we're all a bunch of backwards hillbillies. And I thought, yeah, okay, fine,
I'm
whatever.
Canadian. I don't understand the dynamic. You have to explain it to me like I'm an American idiot, because I am.
But I mean, you know, it's just hyper conservative. You know, I've never seen a real problem with masculinity down in the South, and I always used to make this joke about how, you know, I think these guys who run these masculinity fraternities on the internet ought to go to a construction site down here and try to recruit some people to join their little group, because they'd at best they'd be ignored, and at worst they get the shit beat out of them. And
they'll find slurs they didn't know existed.
Right. But see, here's the thing. The thing that makes the difference is that, you know, even all my buddies down here and everything, they don't have a problem with masculinity, but they do have a problem with managing women in their relationships. And that part of the manosphere is still relevant, and it's always going to be relevant. And that's why I like the space, even though I think it's 80% clowns, because there is that stuff in there that is necessary, because that blue pill conditioning, if you want to call it that, is a real thing. And men do need to learn how to flip that script for themselves. But, you know, they don't need this whole program of you're only a real man if you don't drink, and if you do this, and if you take cold showers, and, you know, ice your balls or whatever it is. You know, all that stuff may be great, but doesn't need to be going to church. None of that stuff needs to be part of the program. It needs to be, you know, there are real human dynamics here that deal with your personality, and, you know, why you are afraid, or why you're timid, or why you always, you know, bow down to, you know, the women in your life, or whatever it is. And that does need to get sorted out. Absolutely.
And the beauty of it is, it's like, after the first 500,000 guys went through there, you kind of realize there's only like 4 or 5 archetypes of guys that end up here. We're not that special or different.
Right.
It's always, for most of the times I just see the guy who had mom mostly raise him, And then as a 2-year old, he kind of learned that mom's validation is good, because if she gets angry, then I'm gonna die, and that's your limbic brain talking. Of course,
Yeah.
she's angry because of any 100 things that have no control over your life. It's the equivalent of a dad who gets drunk and then beats his kids. You never know when he's drunk, and there's nothing you can do to change it. So it's that uncertainty. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
tiger dads are beating their kids every time they get a minus in class or skip
Right.
violin practice. Those kids are fine because it's consistent, right?
Right.
So then you have to de-brainwash guys out of that. Stop thinking it, because you don't think. I'm like, whatever. It's just a mommy issue, right? It'll go away. Well, that's the problem, right? You get the 2-year old has that in his mind, and he's not developed enough. But then he kind of goes with that over his life, and then he gets into school, and now all the dads are out of school because everybody's so paranoid about fucking pedophiles that only chicks teach school now, and then only chicks go into high school now because it
Yeah.
pays like shit, and unless you're bored and you have a control freak need to manage children. So you get to the point where guys are like 21 and they've never had a dude in their life tell them to shut the fuck up, have
Yeah.
any authority whatsoever. So yeah, it sucks that it's that 2-year old, but that 2-year old has been reinforced for the last 18 years. And yeah, you think because you have a construction job that fixes that, it doesn't.
Right.
But you have to de-brainwash that. And the first step is just to understand the process, how it works. And then you got to realize your feelings fucking suck because they were stuff that you developed when you were too young to know any better. It's like you said, I was stupid at 20, and now that I'm 40, I know what I'm doing. Same thing.
Yeah. Well,
But
I
you're
mean,
right. And
there's
then once you learn, but then you learn that, and then just telling your wife to shut the fuck up and realize that she's not going to leave you because you used a harsh language is a freeing thing. And it seems so simple, but it's like impossible until it becomes simple. And I
well, I
love
mean,
seeing that process when guys finally click. It's fucking wonderful.
I
Gives me
mean,
a big rubber one.
one of the things, and I know at this point I'm just old man yelling at clouds about how good it was back in the day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, but when I grew up, when I came up, everybody played. Every boy I knew played sports pretty much, unless they had some sort of developmental problem. So everybody played sports. We all got jobs on construction sites and shit when we were older. And our coaches treated us like shit, particularly when you're playing varsity sports in high school. Back
Mm-hmm.
then, the stuff they said to us would get them, they would get fired now. And but what we did was we learned how to just laugh it off, and do
Separate
better
tone from
next time,
content.
so we didn't get humiliated again. But it worked. And I never saw that as abuse, and I still don't. I just saw that as that's how it is. That's just how it is. And it made us play better for it. And then later on, when Mary Jane wouldn't let us, take her out and put our hand in her panties, we didn't get all butthurt over it. We just kept trying and found somebody who would. And I think there's something to be said for however that happens in those adolescent early 20s years. I think you need somebody to be hard on you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be cruel, it doesn't have to be abusive, however you define that, but you need somebody who's basically going to say, I don't give a shit how you feel about it, you just need to get this shit done. And
Yeah,
the quicker
separate
you
tone
get it
from
done,
content.
the quicker we can move on. And I think that I do see that missing a lot more now, having raised my kids and having seen how their parents dealt with them, their friends' parents dealt with them, and just how few people, every year in our baseball league, we would have fewer and fewer boys signing up for baseball because kids were all, doing other stuff. And when I was a kid, it was always more and more kids signing up, and they had to have bigger teams and add more teams and all that. But now it's kind of attrition now, and I don't, and I'm not going to sit here and say you got to go, baseball's the key, like everybody else does. But there that does have an impact when you have kids who are always being encouraged, particularly boys who are always being encouraged and never being expected to perform and stop making excuses. And but it's like the other side just goes overboard with all this stuff, and it's like you don't have to have an entire program. You just have to, you just have to be focused on the results and not on all the information about how you have to get there.
What argue process is a big part of it too. Like I talk about OODA loops, but you're right. Like go out, fail, learn why you failed, don't fail the second time. Try not to make the same mistake twice. But I think that's where the tone content separation comes in. It's amazing, by the way, when you describe the South, you're basically describing basic training to me. So apparently you guys are all equipped for the military. The South will rise again. Because, yeah, the whole reason they yelled at you, they didn't yell at you because they didn't like you. It was just a job. But if they yell at you, you get your fucking fight or flight starts kicking in. You start freaking out. You start doing stupid shit. So they basically yell at you so much to the point where you don't hear the volume anymore. And you're just paying attention to what is it he's trying to say. All right, my fucking boots are shitty. My drill sucked. And
Well, I want you to be able to. You have to be able to perform under pressure and under adverse conditions. Whether it's and military is a much more intense version of sports, but it's the same. It's the same basic dynamic. And if you have to perform while everybody's giving you shit and you're capable of doing that, then when you're actually in a game and you have other people knocking the shit out of you, if you're playing football, say, which was my sport in high school, then you're going to be able to perform and not number 57 just hit me and that hurt. That
That's
was
the problem.
uncomfortable.
We're so far gone now, right? Because we're at the age now where the guys that are supposed to be those hard on you coaches were raised like those sensitive snowflakes. I know it's cliche, but whatever. So when they have to be the hard ass, they don't know how to. So it becomes like a performative art exhibit.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this a lot. I'm so going to get like demonetized to shit for this one. But there was a phase that I called like the don't be a faggot phase of the Married Red Pill. Because it used to come in there a lot of slurs, right? This is exactly like you said, separate tone from content. If you're getting pissed off at some dude on the internet with mean words, your wife's going to eat you a fucking live. And so you kind of desensitize people to the harsh language so they can get to work. But then you got a group of guys that would come in specifically for that, like a Catholic absolution. It's like, yeah, so I get it. So if you yell at me, I become a man. It's like, that's not the point. But then the guys would love it because I'm yelling at these guys and calling them faggots. And then they're like, thank you for calling me a faggot. And then nobody really learns anything from it. But it sounds good on paper. And I hated it. So I kind of did a call out on it points. Like, we're not your Catholic confession. The whole point of this like harsh drill sergeant stuff is so that you can stop freaking out over mean words and start focusing on what really is important. We kind of lost the boat on that. I think we're going back to it soon. But I don't know how to get back from that other than to just... I feel like Bond, where it's like, you're a dinosaur. You get out of here. It's a new world now. And I'm like, no, you're going to need me in the third act when Golden Tooth or whatever decides to take over the moon.
Golden Dick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the and all that shit in the movies and everything. That's the mind fuck that they're trying to, it just kind of reflects where they're at. But that's why, again, growing up down here, and you can see woke shit, there's woke shit all over the South still. Mm-hmm. But, unless you're in Atlanta, unless you're in a lot of big, metro areas.
Oh, New California?
Down here. Well, more in the South, but there's, the traditional way of doing things is still very much alive and it hasn't changed as much. And that's probably one of the reasons why I'm just, old man yelling at clouds. Cause I only see a lot of this shit, on the internet these days because my kids are grown. They, one of them has a family of his own. The other one's living the life in Florida. And,
nice.
And so I just don't see it because I'm just doing my thing. And I only really see this. It does have a
feel like it's almost like artificial, isn't it? Just because it's just like, it's so hard to find it except for online.
It's part of it because everybody's coming online, together to all gripe about it at the same time. And I get that, but it's like, I don't know, just get out there and do your shit, man.
Well, what you're having now is the problem that naturals have, where to them, I wouldn't say it came easy, but like just naturally progressing through life, you figured it out and you got it there. So I get it for guys like that. It's hard to tell a guy who didn't get those same opportunities early on, just fucking do it.
Right.
It's like there's this old meme about it and I loved it. It was like guys who were shitting on pickup artists. And it was like how to draw an owl. Well, first draw some ovals and then draw the rest of the fucking owl. And that was when they were like, just go talk to girls, bro.
Yeah. I do try to remember that because I don't have a course, although for $10,000 a week, I will move in with you and call you a pussy every day until you get things right. I will do that.
The wine more please rates. I like it.
If anybody's out there is interested, but I remember when, I went through my trauma and it was, I was kind of a mess for a few months. Um, but I don't get the guys. I don't know. It's just like that group I was in before where most of us got out and kept moving, but a few guys just stayed there. I think there's always going to be a few who just stay there for whatever
Can't
reason.
save everybody.
Yeah.
There's a bell curve for a reason. Not everybody makes the top of it.
Yeah. It's, Rob and I talk about this on Let 'Em Burn all the time. It's just there's that 80s emphasis on the experience, the results, just getting out there and doing shit rather than, being too introspective about it. And, it's just like everything else, you need a little introspection, but a little goes a long way. And if you get too much, then you're just stuck there.
Yeah, navel's not that deep. You can only gaze so long.
It's the quicksand that we all in the 70s and 80s thought was going to be a big problem in the future, but it turned out there's hardly any quicksand anywhere.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the quicksand scare.
Yeah, like Gilligan's Island and all those shows we watched as a kid. There's always somebody stuck in quicksand, but
Yeah.
I've never seen any.
I think every decade there's always the one panic. What was it? The 70s it was sharks, and then the 80s it was quicksand. Or no, the 80s was AIDS. The 70s was quicksand. The 60s was sharks. The 90s was, I don't even know, the Matrix maybe. And then all of a sudden it became like woke, or atheist was in the 2000s. 2010s was like woke people, and now it's like a marginally
Well, now it's
more deadly
whammon,
flu.
right?
Yeah,
Now
whammon.
whammon are the big scare. Whammon are
Whammon and
gonna,
COVID.
it's, the funny thing is that women have their trauma too, and the good thing people will learn, if dudes can learn, if they get off their butts, they date, they date a lot, spin a lot of plates, and do all that, is they realize that women are human too, guys. They have their trauma, they learn their lessons too.
Dude, I'd argue they're doing worse than guys. But you wouldn't know it if you judge them by male standards. If it's just the notch count you're worried about, yeah, they're crushing it. But pretty sure girls aren't really about notch counts, at least the ones that are honest with themselves.
I mean, I've dated some that were just 10 minutes in, it was insufferable, and that didn't last very long. But I've dated others who have learned their lessons, were kind of humbled by it. They're still women, but they're not they're not that bad to be around. They learn from their mistakes too. And
yeah, one of my best friends back on the island when I was still in the military there, she was great. And I would remember talking about, like, I'd go on a date, and then within the first half hour the girls tell me about how fucking Uncle Touchy was fooling around. I'm like, holy Jesus, just so you know, I'm damaged. And I was talking about, like, why is every girl like this? Like, why can't they all be adjusted like you? She's like, no, and then she told me I'd known her for like years, and she finally told me her story of like Uncle Touchy and that. She's like, yeah, but you just get the fuck over it. And I sure as fuck don't bring it up on a date. What the hell's wrong with these bitches you're with? Dude, she was harder on women than I've ever been.
dude, I dated one of the clinical psychs that I dated on our first or second date. We're at a Vietnamese place eating soup, and she's practically crying into her soup, talking about how when she was scarred because her father, when she was young, would take her brother on these camping trips with his friends and their sons, but he'd never take her. And
Holy fuck.
And I just said, don't you think he was kind of doing you a favor, because a girl out in the woods with a bunch of drunk guys and their sons, that's probably not the best place for you to be. And then it was the typical, well, they didn't have to drink, and they didn't have to do this, they didn't have to do that. And it's that whole,
didn't have to go camping, I guess.
It's like, right, it's like, you should have just stayed home and taken it to a pony show. It's like, but it's that kind of mentality, and it's nuts. Why? I didn't really know what to say to that.
What can you say, really? That's stupid. Okay, argue with her at a date. Like, you wouldn't believe how many guys argue with chicks on their first dates. Like, what are you doing? Why? Yeah. Do you even know her? Not really. Well, why are you arguing then? Well, because she's wrong. Yeah, but why do you care?
Yeah.
Well, because she's wrong and I'm right.
All right. Well, that's when that came up. I was just like, yeah, we can go camping. I'll take you to the woods.
I like that. See, irreverence. It's the absolute tool of the Chad. I don't care if the Chad's 50 or 20. I can take you camping if you want to. Bring a banjo.
Well, that's the thing.
And
The
at least
banjo makes a
learning that
difference.
too, like, because I think a lot of guys, they build up women as this weird arch nemesis, like they got it all figured out because TV is telling them they're strong and independent, and they're rolling out the red carpet to make them good consumers. And of course, then I get over there, and but then you think that when you're suffering, but then you think they're also like stupid children who don't know they're any better, and they cry for every reason. And it's like
Right.
either they're in Doctor Strangelove's war room, or they're in like National Lampoon's I'm fucked in the head. And it's so
Right.
weird how you can have these two images of women in your head as, like, again, the polar opposites, like the thug guy or the simp.
Right.
Same thing with girls, and I'd argue maybe some are like that. But you just can't, but it always changes depending on which one makes you out to be the better person. Again, it's like that narcissism book you were talking about.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, if my ex-wife sleeps with somebody else and cheats on me, well, that's because she's a Machiavellian mastermind. Well, if my ex-wife stuck with me and she's loyal but she does stupid things, that's because she's a fucking bobblehead and I need to step up. It's like, for fuck's sakes, dude.
Well, if you have a girl, you're on a date, you have a girl sitting there, for whatever reason, she lapses into that stuff and starts complaining about it. Just, take it as a cry for help. She's stuck in quicksand. The way you get her out is by, just joking. Yeah, we'll go camping.
Yeah.
We'll bring some beer.
We'll go camping. Here, grab onto this lifeline.
That's right.
Try jiggling it, see if that works. Sometimes it takes a bit to get going.
But it doesn't
Well, that's
stretch
it.
too far, so be careful. Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like you get, and you see it, guys too. Everybody loves to tell you their life story when you first met. I think a lot of people don't have like the self worth to realize that your ability to be their best friend, their source of validation, their priest, their therapist. It's like that's a gift. If it wasn't a gift, people wouldn't be demanding it from everybody all the time. And so just giving it away is so cheap. I think Patrice O'Neill used to call it being a time hoe for guys.
Yeah.
The same way that girls just give up pussy for everybody, guys giving up their fucking everything.
It gets, if you do, and that's, I think that's another good reason to spin plates, because if you just, date one girl and, see her once or twice a week, it doesn't become as real. If you're dating three or four at one time, and then you start seeing them all doing that, and you realize what a time sink it is, and you
Yeah.
realize that there are real consequences to that, because you only have so much time in a day, and you're taking time out to go on a date with this chick, and is she gonna bend your ear crying for sympathy about something stupid that happened 20 years ago? It becomes easier to be heartless.
Yeah.
A little bit more cold,
Well, it's like
and
you'll be fine. The last 5 girls I dated were the same thing. And what's my favorite line? I love using this for people. It's like, yeah, we're not there yet. Like, slow down. I like that because it leaves the door open. It's like, look, maybe we become best friends, maybe we become husband and wife, or maybe all this shit. And then I'm more than happy to like take on the emotional burden of helping you deal with your daddy issues. But until then, slow down. Right now, I just want to find out if I sleep with you and you're not going to try to kill my animals when I'm sleeping, or sneak through my house and steal shit.
yeah. I mean, if a dude needs a mantra, it's hang out, have fun, and hook up.
Yeah.
If what you're doing isn't progressing in that direction, then
Well, that's not meaningful. That's
you're
only
gonna
only low quality women like having fun and hooking up.
you're gonna
High quality
analyze
women
you're gonna
love to be
analyze everything
dowered.
she says, and explain to her why it was okay for her dad to leave her at home on a camping trip, and everything else. Are you gonna distract her with something fun? That's what you
Oh
need
yeah,
to do.
the Swiss watch guys where they look at the girl like, all right, nut bolt this, put the gear here, and it'll all fix it, and it'll be all great. It's like, dude, like Reddit tier smart is not smart.
Oh, dude,
Reddit tier smart is just you turning it into a hobby.
I'm not
It's like a
on. I'm
soldering
not.
iron.
I'm not on Reddit, but I am in a couple of private chat group things that I
It's
don't
all the same.
participate in much. But in one of them, there was this guy a few weeks ago who was posting all these texts he was having with this chick he met on Tinder or something, and everything that she said, like she would roll off a barrel of questions. Hey, what are you doing today? What kind of car do you drive? What's this? What's that? And then the dude, all of his responses is he's answering every one of her questions point by point, and then at the end he asked her out, and she said, "Oh, I'll have to let you know, this is a little bit fast for me." And he was like, "What was I doing wrong?" And so I told him what he was doing wrong, and I posted an interaction that I had a little while ago, that was like, 2 minutes of back and forth, and then get her number and we set a date. um and I explained that to him, and then he deleted his chat, and
Oh, those fucking guys! I hate those
he
guys.
bounced. And I was like, that's what, and see, and that's why I don't help people, because if I take the time to do that, and then they just bail because they don't like the answer.
Dude, that's where Midswatch is headed to, by the way. I talked about a bunch on those where I read those old field reports. About 80% of them are a deleted comment and a deleted thing. If they weren't automatically archived, I wouldn't have half of them. But it's literally that. Some guy comes in with this one-off question. He finds out there's some fundamental shit he's doing wrong, and guys say it in that way that's somewhat harsh, and they're like, they just leave.
Yeah.
No, I don't want this. And you're like, all right, fine. But the deleting part gets me, because for every guy who fucks up, there's 100 guys who fucked up and are too embarrassed to say anything. And so just leaving your fuck up there for posterity is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
I even tell the mods and the married red pills, like, yeah, don't just delete these things, just lock them. Because everybody's just going to end up shitting on the guy, and it's going to lose the whole point of it. Well, yeah, I guarantee you, somebody's going back 3 years, and he's going to see this guy who had his same fucking problem, where he was texting the girl about her problems too fucking much, wondering what I did wrong, and he can see what she did wrong right there, because Alpha Chihuahua 42069 was doing it, and then got his ass handed to him by the guys like you, who gave him like a huge amount of help, and then got burned out because the guy didn't use any of it. Yeah, Jack 10, by the way. I wonder if you're Jack 10. If I find this out, by the way, and you're like, actually, remember Jack 10 of Hearts? That was me. Like, fess up now. It'll be a great reveal.
Well, the good thing about leaving that shit up there. No comment.
Yeah.
The good thing about leaving that shit up there is there are lurkers out there who, are probably going to learn the lesson, and you're never going to even know about it. That's the thing. That's kind of my thing, is like, people who take action. They don't tell you they're taking action. They just go do it. Yeah. Maybe they'll come back later and say, hey, I did it. Hey, I mean, it's like, probably the best thing I learned from you was the Skittles trick, except I used trail mix.
Hey, whatever works.
But
you guys are just different in the South. I get it.
I just wanted to, it was funny because I just wanted to see how she would react, and it was kind of manipulative, kind of a shit test, but I don't, as a rule, celebrate Valentine's Day anyway. And so I had told her that before Valentine's Day. And so we did spend that weekend together, and I did give her a bag of trail mix on Valentine's Day, but it wasn't for Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. I just gave it to her, and she didn't care.
I did it. Yeah, it's the same thing. Didn't care. We had a great time anyway. Didn't really do much anything. I even got her to take a picture. I put it up on social media because I was that fucking guy. I've gotten rid of it since, but whatever.
I mean, I've done a lot of that kind of stuff just because I just wanted to see what would happen. And
well, yeah, you're like me. You get bored. If you've dated more than 2 girls, you start to see the same patterns. You're like, how can I spice this up? Or you've been doing pickup for a while and the system's working. You're like, let's see if I can like throw some make it more difficult.
Yeah.
Call it the cunt opener. Call her a cunt at your first opening and see if you can carry through on that.
That's right.
Deceptively easy. You'd think it'd be harder. It's not.
Well, the thing that I learned about all that, and this is one thing that I did kind of pick up from. I never really thought about it before until I started watching some of you guys. Is I started thinking about how context was everything, and so if you're nice to her 80% of the time, you can be a dick 20% of the time, and she doesn't care. If you're a dick 80% of the time, and you're nice 20% of the time, that's probably going to wreck things, unless she has, unless she's.
Well, I argue it's like an expectation thing. Like if you came straight out of the gate as a dick, and then you act sweet sometimes, that's like a nice little bonus. But if you're always the nice guy and then you act like a dick once, completely out of character.
Yeah.
Because I've found that I used to like start playing nice and then be my normal asshole-ish self, and it never worked out. But if I just came out the gate, it's like, warning you right now, I'm a bit of a dick. And then the girls that were for it. And then when I stopped being a dick, it was like those nice sweet moments were like a lot sweeter.
Well, they
put up with me just running my mouth on dumb shit too.
Well,
Bless those girls.
My girl, I was kind of a dick to her for the first 2 years we went out, and then the third year, just last year, I started being kind of nice, and so now I'm a lot nicer to her, just in terms of all the usual bullshit, and but it was actually a natural thing for me, because I'm very slow to get into any kind of relationship of any sort anyway.
Yeah,
And
I
so I
remember
was
the
just like,
Twinkie reference we started off the cast with.
yeah. And so we're having fun, why wreck it with a relationship? And then, 2 years and I start catching some feelings and it's like, all right, this works, but it works because I didn't, I didn't do it until it was, kind of a natural thing. And
Oh, dude, you softy. It took me like a year to develop feelings. I didn't even start the relationship because I had feelings. I started it because I was bored and got flaked by a stripper, and I was hungover at the time, and it seemed like a good idea. Most of my life changing decisions happened at the other end of like of a whiskey night.
yeah,
And then she was freaking out one day, and she's like tells me she loves me, and girls freak out if you don't hear it back. So I said it back just to shut her up. I told her about that a couple of years later. She got pissed at me for like 6 months, and fair enough. But I'm like, you know
she,
what? It took like another 6 months after that, but then I started to really believe it too. So don't worry about it.
in my case, she's been telling me she loves me for 2 years, and then like it wasn't until halfway through the third year that I actually told her I loved her back.
Aw,
And
big softy you.
and so I finally did, because it's a weird thing, because I've always said that I never really had much of a problem, getting a girlfriend, getting laid, but then I always fucked up managing the relationship,
Yeah.
and that actually is the thing that Rollo's book helped me with, and that your stuff helped me with, was not doing it right for the first 10% and then fucking up the other 90%. And that's the thing that I had to learn, and I had to get more understanding in my head about
Did you have
about
that
how to do
Madonna
it.
whore thing? Was that yours? Or
But it wasn't about controlling her, it's about controlling myself. No, it wasn't a Madonna whore thing. It was just more like, it was just nice guy shit.
oh, fair enough.
It was just nice guy shit.
So that's funny. That's how most guys end up doing it. They when they're just dating, it's just the Madonna, like the whore thing. It's like whatever, it's fun, we're sleeping together. But then as soon as they catch feelings, they start treating her like she's Mother Teresa and act super nice guy. And
Yeah, I never did that. No, I
yeah,
never.
well,
I
that's good
always,
then. All roads all roads lead to Rome, even if they're wrong.
I mainly always treated her like a whore. So,
Bless them hoes.
whatever.
I'm just looking at this. I guess we got to end it up. Troy's doing Rule Zero in like 10 minutes.
Yeah. All right.
Georgie. Oh, is it George Bruno in the chat? He is too. Georgie got my VIP tickets to shake your hand at the conference, Masculine of Kayfabe, hoping some wisdom will rub off. Georgie, it's good to see you in chat again. That building over there, there's murderers in there. I'll never forget that fucking line.
What?
Oh, it was like this old Bruno. You don't mind if I tell? Yeah, whatever. It was like the whole red pill will kill you inside. Everybody has one of those moments when they have to shit on Rollo to make their bones.
Oh, okay.
And he was just in the middle of this rant about how red pill is wrong, anger phase is bad, content creators are gullible, are shitting on you, and then just right in the middle of the rant, just stops, looks over, he's like, "See that building over there? There's murderers in there." And then just back to his rant, and I don't know, the comedic timing on that was unintentionally just awesome. Like
Wow.
the best Grandpa Simpson onions on our belt moment.
Wow.
But yeah, don't take that as like I'm not shitting on you. I thought it was generally like one of the coolest things you've ever done on your channel. That and the pipe thing. All right. Anyways, I guess I gotta go. So I don't know. Any closing thoughts before I end it?
It's good talking to you, man.
Yeah, you too. All right, ending it now.